Chapter 620. It's good that you're back. Come, let me take a good look at you. Li Ping happily pulled Lu Ming to sit down and look at him. Lu Yuntian's face was also full of smiles. Father, mother, Ming is fine. Don't worry. Lu Ming smiled and sat down with Li Ping and the other two. Father, Ming came back mainly to heal your meridians. Lu Ming said. What? Heal my meridians? Lu Yuntian's hand that was holding the teacup trembled. Obviously, Lu Yuntian was shocked. Ming, is what you said true? Can you really heal your father's meridians? Li Ping looked at Lu Ming excitedly. That's right. Father, mother, Ming, obtained a bottle of the legendary life water. It can definitely heal father's injuries. Lu Ming moved his hand and the life water appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Life water, life water. I didn't expect such a treasure to exist in this world. Lu Yuntian said excitedly. Father, drink it. I'll help you refine it. Lu Ming gave the life water to Lu Yuntian. All right. Lu Yuntian received it and took a deep breath. He drank it in one gulp and sat down cross-legged. Lu Ming placed his palm on Lu Yuntian's back. True Yuan continuously flowed into Lu Yuntian's body to help him refine the life water. The life water turned into vigorous vitality energy and nourished Lu Yuntian's meridians. Wherever this energy passed, Lu Yuntian's broken and withered meridians were reconnected. Moreover, they became more vigorous and resilient. 2 hours later, the life water was completely refined. Lu Yuntian's meridians were healed and were several times stronger than before. His body was filled with vitality and was full of vitality. It's done. It's really done. Lu Yuntian circulated his cultivation technique and looked at the fiery red true qi in his palm. He was so excited that his body trembled and tears welled up in his eyes. Lu Yuntian's cultivation had already reached the martial grandmaster realm. With the help of Lu Ming, he immediately recovered a bit of his cultivation. How many years had it been? He had thought that he would never be able to practice martial arts again, and that he would never be able to recover his true qi again. But now, he had it back. No one could understand Lu Yuntian's current mood. Ming, thank you. Lu Yuntian took a deep breath and looked at Lu Ming. Father, you and I are father and son. There's no need to thank me. This is what I should do. Lu Ming smiled. He was very happy to see Lu Yuntian recover. That's great, that's great. At the side, Li Ping was also extremely excited. No one in the world knew Lu Yuntian better than her. Lu Yuntian had always had a heart for martial arts. He was a natural martial artist, so not being able to cultivate was a huge blow to him. Now, everything was fine. Father, take these cultivation techniques, martial arts techniques, and elixirs. Lu Ming took out the cultivation techniques, martial arts techniques, elixirs, and weapons that he had prepared for Lu Yuntian. These were all carefully selected by Lu Ming as they were the most suitable for Lu Yuntian. There were all kinds of cultivation techniques, enough for Lu Yuntian to use until he reached the martial king realm. Ming, do you have enough for yourself? Lu Yuntian asked. He was afraid that Lu Ming had given him so many resources that he would not be able to use them. In comparison, Lu Ming was more important. He was already very happy to be able to cultivate. The resources should be left for Lu Ming. After all, Lu Ming was at the golden age of cultivation. Father, don't worry. Ming has a lot of resources. Lu Ming smiled. Lu Yuntian took it. Father, this is a bottle of middle-grade Xiantian origin liquid. Take it and use it with mother. Not only will it help you cultivate your flesh, it will also improve mother's body. Lu Ming took out the bottle of middle-grade Xiantian origin liquid and handed it to Lu Yuntian. Middle grade Xiantian origin liquid. Lu Yuntian's heart skipped a beat. He clearly knew that the price of a middle grade Xiantian origin liquid was an astronomical figure that he could not even imagine. Taking a deep breath, Lu Yuntian looked at Lu Ming with a serious expression and asked, "Ming, what's your cultivation now?" Lu Ming did not hide anything and said, "Peak 9th layer Martial King Realm, but it'll take me some time to reach the peak Martial King Realm." Peak 9th layer Martial King Realm. Lu Yuntian's heart skipped a beat, before it was filled with joy. Great, I'll take this bottle of Xiantian origin liquid." Lu Yuntian burst out laughing. Peak 9th layer Martial King Realm was a realm that he did not even dare to imagine. How could he not be happy that Lu Ming had reached it at such a young age? This was his, Lu Yuntian's, son. The three of them chatted for a while before Lu Yuntian rushed into his room and started cultivating. Lu Ming smiled. With Lu Yuntian's talent, he believed that it would not take long for him to recover his peak cultivation. News of Lu Ming's return did not spread. In the following days, Lu Ming would chat with Lu Yuntian and Li Ping. He would focus on comprehending the lightning intent. Half a month later, Lu Yuntian's cultivation had recovered to the peak 9th layer Martial Master Realm. Soon, he would return to the Martial Grand Master Realm. At this time, Lu Ming's lightning intent broke through again, reaching the peak of the first level. "Now, it's time to raise my wind-fire intent to the peak of the first level." Lu Ming entered the Temple of Paragon, took out a middle-grade profound crystal, and began to break through. 7 days later, Lu Ming used 3 pieces of each of the 2 types of middle-grade profound crystals to break through to the perfected level 1 of the wind and fire concepts. With all 3 intents at the peak of the first level, Lu Ming's cultivation should be able to reach the peak of the King Realm. However, he did not have enough resources. Lu Ming only had 6 million top-grade spiritual crystals. It was not enough for him to reach the peak of the King Realm. He had no choice but to put it aside for now and focus on cultivating the 3 ultimate skills of the Dragon God. With all 3 intents at the peak of the first level, he could cultivate the 3 ultimate skills of the Dragon God to the 6th level. 3 days later, Lu Ming headed for the imperial capital. He started to think about what was at the bottom of the Earth Origin Cave. When Lu Ming was in the first layer of the Martial King Realm, he did not manage to dig it out. Now, he wanted to try again. However, before going to the Earth Origin Cave, he first found Hua Qi to catch up with him. Then, he headed to the Earth Origin Cave. No one noticed Lu Ming. Silently, Lu Ming went to the lowest level of the Earth Origin Cave. It was the 14th level, the level that Lu Ming had dug out. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, this place did not affect Lu Ming at all. Lu Ming continued to dig. The 15th level, the 16th level, the 17th level. When Lu Ming dug out the 17th level and wanted to continue digging, he found that it was empty. Lu Ming dug out a hole and rushed down. He found that there was a huge underground cave below. The fire spiritual qi here was unimaginably violent. In the air of the underground cave, a ball of fire burned fiercely like the sun. Endless heat spread out from the ball of fire. Nest, this is the earth core flowing flame. Kid, you're rich. Chapter 621. Dandan shouted excitedly. Geocentric flowing flame? Lu Ming was a little puzzled. Boy, you're really lucky. The geocentric flowing flame is a kind of top-grade flame between heaven and earth. If you use it to ignite the spirit fire, it'll be perfect. Boy, I'm starting to envy your luck. Dandan shouted. Lu Ming's eyes also lit up. If I absorb this flame, there won't be any fire attribute spirit qi here. Won't this cultivation holy land be wasted? Lu Ming said. What waste? Let me tell you, if you absorb the geocentric flowing flame, the value of this place will really explode. Haven't you noticed that this place is actually a spiritual eye? It is constantly emitting spirit chi, but it has always been absorbed by the flowing geocentric flame, or even blocked. Now that you have absorbed the flowing geocentric flame, the spirit chi here will spread out, turning this place into a true holy land for cultivation. Dandan explained. I see. Lu Ming observed carefully. True enough, he discovered that spirit energy was constantly emanating from below. However, most of it was absorbed by the geocentric flowing flame. It was even burned by the scorching flames. The remaining spirit energy spread out along with the scorching flame's aura, forming fire spirit energy. Lu Ming finally knew how the Earth Yuan cave was formed. Boy, you can't miss this opportunity. I'll teach you how to ignite the spirit fire. First, visualize 10 spirit lamps in your sea of consciousness. Dandan began to teach. Lu Ming began to visualize the spirit lamps in his sea of consciousness according to Dandan's method. The sea of consciousness and Dantian, in a sense, were infinitely big, like two universes. Although the thunder cauldron occupied a part of it, Lu Ming could visualize the spirit lamps in another part of the sea of consciousness. Slowly, 10 spirit lamps seemed to appear in Lu Ming's sea of consciousness, but they were all extinguished and not lit. Now, grab the geocentric flowing flame and use the underworld visualization to absorb it into your sea of consciousness. Dandan shouted. Lu Ming waved both of his palms, forming two giant palms that grabbed the flowing geocentric flames. Boom! The flowing geocentric flame shook violently, as if it had a mind of its own and wanted to escape. The three states of wind, fire, and thunder erupted. Together with his quintessence, he firmly grasped the flowing flame in the geocentric flame and brought it before Lu Ming. Lu Ming felt as if his true essence was about to ignite. The temperature of the flowing geocentric flame was too high. If it weren't for the fact that Lu Ming's cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th layer martial emperor realm, and that his 3 intents had all reached the first stage perfection stage, he would not be able to deal with the earth core flowing flame. Even an ordinary great achievement king would be burned to death if they came. Refine. Lu Ming muttered. He used his true essence and concepts to temper away the violent elements of the flowing earth core flame, making it more docile. 2 hours later, Lu Ming started to use the dark god observation method to absorb the flowing flame from the earth's core and ignite his spiritual fire. Whoosh whoosh, wisps of flowing flame from the earth's core flew into Lu Ming's forehead and appeared in Lu Ming's mind. Boom! Instantly, Lu Ming felt as if he was in magma. The terrifying temperature and flames were burning his body, including his soul. Hot, too hot. Kid, you have to hold on. The higher the quality of the flame, the greater the danger of igniting your spiritual fire. However, the benefits are also unimaginable. Dandan's voice sounded. Lu Ming gritted his teeth and tried his best to control the flowing flame from the earth's core to ignite his spiritual fire. Give me some. Lu Ming roared. He controlled the flowing flame from the earth's core and ignited it towards a lamp. Whoosh, all the flowing flame from the earth's core rushed towards the first lamp. The first lamp emitted a fiery red light. Then, a wisp of flame appeared on the wick of the lamp. At first, the flame was very small, but slowly, the flame on the wick grew bigger and bigger. Finally, it started to burn fiercely. Success! The spiritual fire was successfully ignited. However, this was just the beginning. It was far from over. When the flame of the first lamp reached its peak, a wisp of flame also appeared on the wick of the second lamp. The flame grew bigger and bigger. Kid, the flowing flame from the earth's core is too strong. This is an opportunity to ignite more lamps. Take advantage of it. Dandan reminded. Lu Ming operated the underworld god observation method with all his might. When the flame of the second lamp reached its peak, a scarlet flame also appeared on the wick of the third lamp. Then, the fourth lamp, the fifth lamp, the sixth lamp, igniting 6 lamps had already reached the requirement of a true inscription master. However, it was still far from the limit. The 7th lamp, the 8th lamp, the 9th lamp, the 10th lamp. The 10 spirit lamps were all lit up. Ha, perfect, perfect. The first stage is perfect. It really is the flowing flame from the earth's core. Dandan laughed. The 10 spirit lamps burned with scarlet spirit fire. When the flames of the 10 spirit lamps reached their peak, the spirit fire of the 10 spirit lamps suddenly gathered on the first spirit lamp, while the other 9 spirit lamps were extinguished. The flame of the first lamp started to change. It turned into an orange flame. Orange. This meant that Lu Ming had reached the second stage. The spiritual fire of a level 2 inscription master was orange. This was not the end. When the orange flame of the first lamp reached its peak, the second lamp was also successfully ignited. Just like before, the third lamp, the fourth lamp, finally, the 10th lamp. The second stage also had 10 lamps ignited. Perfect. When the orange flame of the 10 lamps reached its peak, it gathered on the first lamp again. The first lamp's flame turned yellow again. Yellow flame. Level 3 Inscription Master. Just like before, after the first lamp was ignited, the second lamp, the third lamp, the fourth lamp, this time, he ignited 6 lamps in one go. At this moment, he finally stopped and did not ignite the 7th lamp. The energy of the flowing flame from the Earth's core has finally been used up. Ha ha ha, amazing. The first 2 stages were perfect. The third stage, you ignited 6 lamps. This is very rare. Dandan laughed and danced. Lu Ming's face also revealed a happy expression. Within the same level, the more lamps one ignited, the more vigorous the spiritual fire would be. This also meant that one's spiritual power would be stronger. Lu Ming was now a level 3 inscription master. Of course, it was only his spiritual fire that had reached level 3. If he wanted to become a level 3 inscription master, he still needed to practice inscription. Only by mastering inscription could he be considered a true inscription master. Brat, let me tell you, the strength of your spiritual flame is so strong that I'm afraid even those half-baked level 5 inscription masters here can't compare to you. Hee, the first 2 stages are perfect. There aren't many people who can achieve perfection. However, it will be difficult for you to achieve perfection in the later stages. But I still hope that you can do your best and achieve perfection in every stage. Dandan said. Lu Ming nodded. If he wanted to cultivate, of course he had to aim for the best. He would work hard. Chapter 622. Let's try engraving inscriptions. Lu Ming sat cross-legged in the air and closed his eyes. Various methods of engraving level 1 inscriptions began to appear in his mind. In his mind, there were more than 3 million methods of engraving level 1 inscriptions that Dandan had given him. Each method was different. The inscriptions were like a trace of the natural world, mysterious beyond compare. After a while, Lu Ming opened his eyes. The spiritual fire revolved between his fingers and he began to engrave in the air. As his fingertips moved, a mysterious pattern was formed in the air. On top of it, a blazing aura filled the air. This was a level 1 inscription, the heat inscription. Whoosh! The heat inscription flew out and was imprinted on the wall. Then, Lu Ming waved his finger and another inscription appeared in the air. This time, it was filled with a cold aura. This was a level 1 inscription, the cold inscription. With a shake of his finger, the cold inscription also flew out and was imprinted on the wall. Interesting. Lu Ming's eyes sparkled. The spiritual fire revolved and his finger kept moving in the air. Inscriptions flew out one after another, flickering with various radiances. Nestle, success, 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 all of them. Crazy. Dandan, who was on Lin Fan's shoulder, widened its tortoiseshell eyes. Lu Ming had lit 10 spirit lamps in the first stage. Engraving level 1 inscriptions should be easy. Dandan knew this. But now, Lu Ming was engraving inscriptions for the first time. Not only was his inscription speed terrifying, but he also had a 100% success rate. This was too crazy. As far as Dandan knew, even 10 spirit lamps shouldn't be this crazy. Could this guy be an inscription genius? Dandan thought. Ha ha ha, awesome, awesome. Lu Ming felt his eyes glowing. He had a feeling that he was completely in control. It was incomparably comfortable. As he waved his finger, the speed of engraving became faster and faster. In the end, only a phantom could be seen waving and moving in the air. Flashing inscriptions flew out one after another. After half an hour, Lu Ming finally stopped. "Brat, you seem to be very proud. Let me tell you, what are you proud of now? You're still far from it." Looking at Lu Ming's smug and carefree expression, Dandan was displeased and deliberately attacked him. "Oh?" Lu Ming was stunned. "Let me tell you, the inscription you just inscribed is only a single level 1 inscription. If you want to refine weapons, refine pills, or even inscribe inscriptions, you need to combine a variety of inscriptions together. You need to combine countless level 1 inscriptions, or even low-level and high-level inscriptions. It's much more complicated than inscribing a single inscription. Boy, you still have a lot to learn. Also, do you think that your inscription speed is very fast? Let me tell you, there are many true inscription masters who can inscribe inscriptions in an instant. They can inscribe inscriptions with just a wave of their hand. They are many times faster than you." Dandan spared no effort in attacking Lu Ming. "Yes, I'm still far from it. If you have time, you need to practice more." Lu Ming nodded. It was rare for him to feel that Dandan had said something human, no, something tortoise. Dandan nodded with its hands behind its back, looking like a promising child. However, in its heart, it was still shocked by Lu Ming's actions. What it was talking about were things that other people had slowly mastered after countless efforts. Who could achieve it in one go? Lu Ming's speed was already extremely amazing. "Boy, try the underworld god visualization again and you'll know how wonderful it is," Dandan said. "Okay." Lu Ming also couldn't wait to try it. Immediately, he closed his eyes and operated the underworld god visualization. All of a sudden, Lu Ming felt as though he was on a spiritual journey, drifting in the endless universe. Suddenly, a big river appeared in front of Lu Ming. He didn't know how wide and long this big river was. It was incomparably vast and filled with an ancient aura. Lu Ming felt that this big river had a strong attraction to him, attracting him to get closer. Lu Ming slowly flew over and flew into the big river. This is... At this moment, Lu Ming found that he had turned into a ball of flame, a ball of flowing earth core flame. The big river was filled with endless spirit fire, which was the inscription flame. The spirit fire in this big river was endless. It had turned into the color of chaos and was endless. The flowing earth core flame that Lu Ming had turned into floated in the river. Around him, wisps of spirit fire gathered towards the flowing earth core flame. At this moment, Lu Ming had a clear feeling that his spirit fire was slowly growing stronger. "This is amazing," Lu Ming sighed. After a while, with a thought, the big river disappeared, and in front of him was the underground cave again. "Amazing, I feel that the yellow spirit fire of the 6th spirit lamp has become stronger," Lu Ming said in a low voice. "Brat, did you see a huge river?" Dandan asked. "Yes, what is that?" Lu Ming asked curiously. He realized that he knew too little. He did not understand this world at all. Between heaven and earth, there are many laws that represent the heavenly Tao. The river you see is the law of inscription, a supreme law. The law of inscription contains endless power of inscription. If you use the underworld God observation method, you can successfully communicate with the law of inscription and obtain the power of inscription to strengthen your spiritual fire. Moreover, your flame seed is the earth core flowing flame. Coupled with the nether God observation method, I estimate that I've absorbed quite a bit of inscription energy. In the future, you can rely on this to cultivate and improve your spirit flame. Dandan explained. Oh. I seem to have heard that ordinary inscription masters don't improve their spirit fire like this. Lu Ming said. Nonsense, of course not. Dandan curled his lips and said, ordinary inscription masters have two ways to improve their spirit fire. One way is to constantly practice and use the flame of spirit through refining, alchemy, engraving inscription formations, and so on. This is equivalent to training the flame of spirit. The more you train, the flame of spirit will naturally improve. However, this method of improvement is extremely slow. Most of the inscriptionists you see use this method to improve. There's another way. It's also through weapon forging, alchemy, and so on. That's to forge weapons and alchemy beyond one's level. For example, when a level 1 inscription master forges a level 2 spirit weapon, the inscription law will descend upon him and raise his spirit flame. Of course, when forging a high-quality spirit weapon or alchemy of the same level, the inscription law will also descend upon him. It can be done like this? Lu Ming was a little stunned. Of course, there is another way, and that is the spirit fire cultivation method. You can directly communicate with the inscription force and absorb the inscription force. The speed will be countless times faster. However, the spirit fire cultivation method is too rare. Any low-level spirit fire cultivation method that comes out will cause a mad scramble. A low-level spirit fire cultivation method can create a powerful inscription force. And the underworld God observation method is the top spirit fire cultivation method. Now, you know how precious it is. Dandan said proudly. Chapter 623. Wait a minute, spiritual weapons and elixirs, aren't upper grade the strongest? Why are there supreme grade and peerless grade? Lu Ming suddenly thought of this question. Bullshit, those inscription masters are useless and can only refine upper grade. That's why I said your spear is a waste. If you let that old man refine it, he can only refine upper grade level 6. If a level 6 true inscription master refined it, he can at least refine supreme grade. Dandan said disdainfully. I see. Lu Ming nodded. Suddenly, his expression changed and he said, someone is coming down, we should leave. Lu Ming felt that someone was coming down from above. Well, after Lu Ming absorbed the earth core flowing flame, the heat disappeared. The heaven and earth spiritual chi in the earth core cave was 10 times denser than before. It naturally attracted the curiosity of others and it was normal for them to come down to investigate. Lu Ming did not want to cause a commotion, so he did not plan to show himself. His body flashed and he turned into a ray of light and rushed up. He brushed past a few youths, but those youths didn't notice him at all. Soon, Lu Ming came out of the earth core cave and came to the imperial palace to find Hua Qi. He told Hua Qi about the earth core cave. Hua Qi was stunned when he heard this, then he was overjoyed. There was a spiritual eye under the earth core cave. With this as the foundation, the Burning Sun Empire would definitely have more and more experts in the future. The empire would also become stronger and stronger. Immediately, Hua Qi sent out experts to seal the earth core cave and then he thought about how to use it. Lu Ming and Hua Qi chatted for a while and left some elixirs and manuals for him. Then he left the imperial capital and returned to the Lu family. After that, Lu Ming's schedule was full every day. Apart from comprehending the thunder essence and cultivating the 3 unique skills of the dragon god, he would practice inscriptions, cultivate the underworld god visualization, and raise the spiritual fire. Time passed quickly and 2 months passed. It had been almost 3 months since the battle with the sacred star. In these 2 months, Lu Ming had made great progress in all aspects. The 3 ultimate skills of the dragon god had already reached perfection and reached the 6th level. As for the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, he had reached the 4th step in one go. Its power was equivalent to the 6th level of a heaven-class upper-class martial skill, which was equivalent to the 6th level of the 3 skills of the dragon god. Adding on the fact that his 3 concepts of heaven and earth were all at the 1st level of perfection, Lu Ming's current battle strength was several times stronger than when he had fought against the sacred star. Now, even without the help of Dandan's inscription array, Lu Ming could easily defeat Sacred Star. Of course, the Sacred Star would also improve and wouldn't remain stagnant. This was a different matter altogether. As for the concept of thunder, it had also improved greatly and was infinitely close to the 2nd level. However, it was extremely difficult to break through to level 2. It was not something that could be done in a short period of time. Between a 1st level concept and a 2nd level concept, there was a massive chasm that was difficult to cross. The Tao of inscription improved the fastest. After 2 months of cultivation, Lu Ming had successfully ignited another spirit lamp. 7 yellow flames burned fiercely, and he was about to ignite the 8th. However, the further one went, the harder it was to ignite a spirit lamp. The first few spirit lamps were the easiest to ignite. As for Lu Ming's inscription speed, it had already reached a terrifying level. On a mountain peak hundreds of miles away from Windy Fire City, Lu Ming had been cultivating the path of inscription on this mountain peak. Lu Ming's figure flickered as he stepped on the mountain peak. With every step he took, an inscription would appear, emitting a resplendent light. Freak, freak. In just 2 short months, he has actually cultivated inscription to this level. This freak. On a bluestone nearby, Dandan was lazily basking in the sun, chewing on a spirit herb. As he chewed, he wailed in his heart. In 2 months, Lu Ming had finally reached the level where he could inscribe inscriptions with just a wave of his hand. If it were anyone else, it would be impossible for them to do this without 10 or 20 years of hard work. No wonder Dandan was wailing in grief. Brat, to cultivate to this level, you can barely be considered qualified. Once you become a 5th level inscription master, your mental strength will be able to communicate with the power of heaven and earth. At that time, you will be able to erupt with a terrifying attack. Dandan would not admit that Lu Ming was a freak, but he still wanted to attack him. Otherwise, how could he maintain his lofty status? Although, in Lu Ming's heart, he had never been lofty. Let's go back. Lu Ming walked over and pinched Dandan's head, tossing it over his shoulder. Ah! Brat, if you dare pinch my head again, I won't let you off. I won't let you off. Dandan hysterically screamed. Lu Ming curled his lips and flew into the air, preparing to return to the Lu family. At this moment, a strong sense of danger emanated from his heart, causing his skin to tighten. Chi-chi, in the sky, countless wind blades sliced through the air and shot towards him, filled with an incomparably sharp intent. Boom! Without any hesitation, Lin Fan's 3 wills exploded, his true yuan rumbled, and hundreds of spear lights shot out, clashing with the wind blades. Boom! Boom! Explosions sounded out in the sky, and energy shot out in all directions, causing the forest to become a mess. Chi! At this moment, a huge wind blade, black in color, slashed down from the sky. Wherever the wind blade passed, the air would tremble violently and split apart like ripples of water. True Dragon Strike. Lu Ming stabbed out with his spear, and a tricolor true dragon flew out, clashing with the huge wind blade. The air shook, and the wind blade and tricolor true dragon both disappeared. So strong. Lu Ming's eyes sharpened. Although Lu Ming hadn't broken through to the Peak King realm yet, his battle strength was something that few kings could match. But now, the person above him had battle strength that wasn't any weaker than his. Could it be a Sea of Soul Realm expert? No, he didn't feel the vast aura of a Sea of Soul Realm expert, so it shouldn't be one. Who is it? Come out, you sneaky bastard. Lu Ming transformed into a beam of spear gleam and charged upward. He thrust his spear and a bright beam of spear gleam soared into the sky. Wang! At this moment, the air shook, and Lu Ming felt a terrifying power acting on his body. It was as if his weight had suddenly increased by dozens or even hundreds of times. However, it was different from gravity. Lu Ming felt a huge pressure on his body. It was as if he had fallen into a quagmire. Chi-chi, around him, the sound of air being torn apart could be heard. Countless wind blades tore through the air and sliced towards him. No, this wasn't a wind blade. Although it was similar, it was more mysterious and dangerous. Interesting. Lu Ming's lips curled into a smile, and his aura became even stronger. Just now, Lu Ming hadn't used his full strength at all. His true yuan circulated rapidly, and 3 intents surrounded his body. 9 dragons trampling the sky. Lu Ming flipped over, and with his head down and feet up, he took 4 steps and rushed up. Boom! Boom! Heaven and earth went berserk, and the space shook. That terrifying pressure was pierced through by Lu Ming. Lu Ming rushed up and pointed with his spear. Chapter 624. This woman had a peerless grace and was extremely beautiful. She was so beautiful that she could cause the downfall of cities and countries. She was wearing a black dress, revealing a pair of snow-white slender thighs, like the most beautiful piece of art carved by a deity. She blinked her big eyes and stared at Lu Ming without blinking. Xiao Qing. At the sight of this lady, Lu Ming's heart skipped a few beats. Subsequently, he was elated. This beautiful woman was actually Xian Yanqing, who had disappeared for more than a year, almost 2 years. Now that she had appeared here, he almost thought that he was dreaming. Oh my, what a beautiful woman. The dandan even forgot to chew the spiritual grass as he stared with his eyes wide open. Lu Ming, I thought I had left you far behind. Not bad, it's been a while since we last met. A crisp voice came out from Xian Yanqing's mouth. Xiao Qing, where have you been all this time? Lu Ming flew over. He was very shocked as well. He had already sensed that Xian Yanqing's cultivation had reached the peak martial emperor realm. That was too terrifying. During this period of time, Lu Ming had encountered many fortuitous encounters, especially in the heaven realm. He had obtained a large number of profound crystals. Coupled with the Enlightenment Ancient Tree, which was a heaven-defying item, Lu Ming's cultivation level had soared all the way to the peak of the 9th level Martial King realm. However, Xian Yanqing's cultivation was 1 layer higher than his, reaching the peak Martial Emperor realm. Furthermore, her strength was extremely terrifying, stronger than the sacred stars. Lu Ming did not use his full strength in the short exchange, but Xian Yanqing might not have used her full strength. How did she cultivate? What's wrong? Did you miss me? Xian Yanqing stared at Lu Ming with her big eyes, the corners of her mouth curling into a smile. Of course, we've been married for a long time. Of course I missed you when you suddenly disappeared. I couldn't even eat or sleep. Lu Ming said with a smile. Nonsense, who's been married for a long time? Humph, taking advantage of me as soon as we met. Xian Yanqing rolled her eyes at Lu Ming. Her smiling face blushed a little. However, deep in her eyes, there was joy. It had been a long time since they last met. Xiao Qing, tell me the truth, where have you been? Your cultivation has improved so much. If I hadn't worked hard, I would have been surpassed by you this time. Lu Ming asked curiously. Sigh. Xian Yinqing let out a sigh as she said with a complicated look, I went to a place I didn't want to go, so I found a chance to come out. Oh, did you miss me and come out to look for me? Lu Ming chuckled. Who's thinking about you? Dream on. Xian Yinqing blushed and glared at Lu Ming. Shameless, this guy is shameless. Pretty girl, don't listen to him, this guy always says that when he sees pretty girls. Dandan Dawn eyes rolled, Xian Yi angrily. This little tortoise? Lu Ming, when did you raise a little tortoise? It's quite cute, isn't it? Xian Yinqing looked at Dandan Dawn eyes. Huh, beautiful lady, listen carefully. I'm not an ordinary tortoise. I'm the leader of the top 10 battle beasts. My combat strength is peerless. I'm proficient in astronomy, geography, and the way of inscription. I can give you whatever you want. Coincidentally, I'm lacking a maid. Nestle, brat, what are you doing? Dandan Dawn hands behind its back, looking proud. Before it could finish its words, it was slapped back by Lu Ming. Boy, how dare you slap me? How dare you, I'll bite. Dandan glared at Lu Ming, bared its teeth, and suddenly pounced on Lu Ming, wanting to bite Lu Ming's finger. Lu Ming pinched Dandan's head and lifted it into the air. Dandan's short limbs kept struggling in the air, and its eyes were about to spit fire. Seeing that it was about time, Lu Ming put Dandan down. Ah, boy, you're finished. You're completely finished. How dare you pinch my head? You're finished. Dandan Dawn screamed non-stop. Sigh, I don't have any elixirs recently. I'll have to use them sparingly. Lu Ming sighed. Dandan Dawn screeching stopped abruptly. Its eyes were wide open, and its shell kept moving up and down. It was obviously angry. Huh, Xian Yinqing Dawn laughed. Your pet tortoise is really interesting. Xian Yinqing Dawn laughed. Beauty, I'm not a pet. I'm a top 10 battle. Before it could finish its words, Lu Ming took out a level 5 spiritual herb and threw it to Dandan Dawn to shut up. Xiao Qing, how did you find me? Lu Ming Dawn asked. It wasn't easy to find you. I first went to the East Branch Palace of the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace and sparred with that old man Mu Zheng. That old man was stubborn and didn't say anything at first. Later, Jian Fengyun recognized me, and that old man told me that you had returned to the Sun Empire. That's when I found Hua Qi told me that you were at the Lu family, so I went to the Lu family and coincidentally saw you here. Xian Yinqing Dawn explained. Lu Ming Dawn smiled bitterly and mourned for Mu Zheng. It seemed like Xian Yinqing Dawn had definitely messed things up in the East Branch Palace. Let's go back to the Lu family first. My parents miss you a lot. Lu Ming Dawn smiled faintly. What do your parents miss me for? Xian Yinqing Dawn lips curled up into a smile and her eyes were like autumn water. After 2 years, Xian Yinqing Dawn was almost 20 years old. She was even more beautiful than before. Her figure was amazing. She had lost some of her youthfulness and gained a mature charm. She was shockingly beautiful. She seemed to be even more beautiful than Mulan's and Autumn Moon. The two of them walked side by side and headed back to the Lu family. Lu Ming Dawn and Xian Yinqing Dawn landed in the courtyard of the Lu family head residence. Father, Mother, I'm back. Lu Ming Dawn called out. Ming is back. 2 figures walked out of the room. They were Lu Yuntian and Li Ping. After more than 2 months, Lu Yuntian's cultivation had completely recovered to the martial Grand Master realm. Furthermore, he had surpassed his previous cultivation and his cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds. He had reached the rank 7 martial Grand Master realm. Destruction before re-establishment. Lu Yuntian's talent was originally very high. After experiencing so much over the years, his martial heart was strong and unwavering. His comprehension of the martial Tao was also very deep. His cultivation naturally improved at an astonishing rate. Moreover, just a few days ago, Lu Yuntian had comprehended the fire force. Lu Yuntian and Li Ping's gaze swept past Lu Mingdan and then landed on Xian Yanqingdan. The two of them were stunned at first, then they were overjoyed. "Miss Nianqing, it's Miss Nianqing!" Li Ping called out. "Nianqing greets uncle and auntie. Congratulations to uncle for recovering your cultivation." Xian Yanqingdan bowed. She could naturally tell at a glance that Lu Yuntian's cultivation had already recovered. "Ha ha ha, Miss Nianqing, there's no need to be so polite. It's been a long time. I'll get someone to prepare a banquet to welcome Miss Nianqing back." Lu Yuntian laughed. "Thank you, uncle." Xian Yanqingdan said. Why are you so polite this time?" Lu Mingdan looked at Xian Yanqingdan in surprise. She had never been so polite before. Xian Yanqingdan's face turned slightly red. She glared at Lu Ming and said, "It's none of your business." "Huh." Lu Yuntian laughed. Li Ping's eyes scanned Xian Yanqingdan's body, looking very satisfied. Chapter 625. A day later, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing stood side by side on Emerald Cloud Peak outside Windy Fire City. "Lu Ming, what are your plans after this?" Xian Yanqing asked. "How about leaving Tianxian domain and going to a wider world to train and cultivate? Do you want to come with me?" Lu Ming's eyes were deep and seemed to be able to penetrate space. He looked into the distance and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Tianxian domain was too small after all. The outside world was more exciting. Tianxian domain only had one saint star on the list of top 1,000 talents in Eastern Wilderness, and it was ranked last. What about the other geniuses? How powerful were they? How powerful were they? Lu Ming wanted very much to see if he could clash with those unparalleled geniuses so that he could become stronger. Upon hearing Lu Ming's words, the corners of Xian Yanqing's lips curled up slightly. There was a smile on her face as she said, "Sure, of course I want to be with you. I haven't fulfilled my promise to myself back then." "Promise? What promise?" Lu Ming asked curiously. "To defeat you and trample you under my feet, of course. You can't run away." Xian Yanqing chuckled. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. This girl still remembers that. How long has it been? It seems that this woman is really petty. She's too vengeful. Lu Ming muttered to himself. However, he still felt a sense of urgency. Xian Yanqing's improvement was too shocking. If he was slower, he would be surpassed by Xian Yanqing. Furthermore, during the time that Xian Yanqing had disappeared, the martial skill that he had cultivated had undergone some changes. It seemed to have become even more shocking. Where did she go? Did she break into a secret place or go back to her own home? If she went back to her own home, then her family background is amazing. Lu Ming looked at Xian Yanqing and pondered. However, Xian Yanqing obviously didn't want to talk about her family background, so he didn't ask. "What are you looking at?" Xian Yanqing rolled his eyes at him. Then, his eyes flashed as if he had thought of something. He asked, "Lu Ming, have you found the secret of the martial emperor's treasure that your father mentioned? Are you talking about this?" A jade sword the length of a finger appeared in Lu Ming's hand. Xian Yanqing's eyes lit up. A jade sword the length of a finger also appeared in his hand. It was almost the same as the one in Lu Ming's hand. Wang! Wang! The two infused their quintessence at the same time. The jade swords lit up, and a map appeared on each of the jade swords. On the map, there was a route that led to a destination. Both of them had the same destination. It seems like there are quite a lot of these jade swords. Lu Ming said. As far as I know, this jade sword should be the key to the martial emperor's treasure. There should be 9 of them, and they should be scattered all over the eastern wasteland. Only by gathering all 9 of them can one find the martial emperor's treasure. Xian Yanqing said. 9, then we only have 2. It seems like there's no hope for the martial emperor's treasure. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. No, 9. 8 have already appeared. Xian Yanqing said. 8 of them have appeared? How do you know? Lu Ming asked curiously. Lu Ming, didn't you study this jade sword when you got it? Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming speechlessly. Ahem, I didn't study it much. Lu Ming coughed awkwardly. He really didn't study it much. Previously, he had focused on improving his cultivation to defeat the sacred star. Later, he focused on studying the inscription Dao, so he really didn't study this jade sword. Xian Yanqing glanced at Lu Ming speechlessly and said, Look, don't you see a few faint inscriptions on the hilt of this jade sword? Lu Ming looked at it carefully and really saw some faint inscriptions. There are a total of 9 inscriptions on it. They represent 9 keys. Right now, 8 of them are flickering with light. That means that 8 keys have appeared and landed in different people's hands. And this map points to the destination, which is in the chaotic astral ocean. I guess the other people who have the keys will definitely go to the chaotic astral ocean. How about going directly to the chaotic astral ocean? Xian Yanqing said. Chaotic astral ocean? Lu Ming's eyes moved. The chaotic astral ocean was extremely famous in the eastern wasteland. It was a vast inland sea, more than 10 times bigger than the Tianxian domain. In the chaotic astral ocean, there were islands dotted with stars. Countless martial experts resided in that sea area. From the name, one could tell that the chaotic astral ocean referred to this inland sea area, which was extremely chaotic and where countless vicious people gathered. This was because this was neither the territory of the Emperor Heaven Divine Palace, nor the Heavenly Corpse Sect, nor the Heavenly Monster Valley. It was difficult for the several overlord forces to conquer this place. Therefore, all the experts who offended these overlord forces hid in the chaotic astral ocean, and no one could find them. In addition, there were countless large and small forces in the chaotic astral ocean, causing this area to be extremely chaotic and full of killing. It was common for people to draw their swords and kill people because of a disagreement. You're not afraid, are you? Xian Yanqing looked at Lu Ming with a faint smile. Lu Ming smiled and said, The chaotic astral ocean is exactly what I want. Lu Ming had the 9 dragons bloodline, so this place was most suitable for him. Okay, then when do you plan to set off? In 2 days, we'll set off. It had been a few months since they returned. It was time to leave. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing bade farewell to Lu Yuntian and Li Ping. Although the couple was reluctant, they were happy that Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming were going out on an adventure together. Only by going out together could they quickly develop feelings for each other, right? Whoosh! Whoosh! 2 beams of light streaked across the sky and disappeared into the horizon. The 2's speed was unbelievably fast. After a few days, they arrived at Tianxian City. With Lu Ming's current reputation, it was not easy for him to take the inter-province transportation formation. 2 days later, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing stepped onto the inter-province transportation formation. The inter-province transportation formation formed a huge whirlpool. With a flash of light, the 2 disappeared from the altar. The Yunfeng domain was a large domain near the chaotic astral ocean. It was extremely vast. However, the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace was not the only force in this large domain. A few powerful forces had established their forces here, such as the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace, the Sky Corpse Sect, and the Sky Demon Valley. They had also built inter-province transportation formations. To go to the chaotic astral ocean, one had to first teleport here and then fly to the chaotic astral ocean. However, before Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing went to the chaotic astral ocean, there was one more thing that they had to do. To be precise, Xian Yanqing had to seize a treasure from one of the forces in the Yunfeng domain. The inter-province transportation formation in the Emperor Heavenly Divine Palace of the Yunfeng domain flashed and two figures appeared. They were Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing. "Nestle, the cost is too expensive." Lu Ming cried out in pain. The Tianxian domain and the Yunfeng domain were 23 large domains apart. The cost of the transportation was 1,500,000 supreme spiritual crystals per person. The two of them cost a total of 3 million supreme spiritual crystals. In order to show his manliness, Lu Ming naturally paid out of his own pocket. In the end, he was heartbroken. Now, he was only left with more than 3 million supreme spiritual crystals. It seems like I have to find a way to get some supreme spiritual crystals. Otherwise, I won't even have enough to use, let alone become a peak king. Chapter 626. The two of them left the territory of the Emperor Sky Divine Palace and turned into two rays of light, heading towards the west. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was extremely famous in the Yunfeng domain. It was one of the most famous forces besides the Emperor Sky Divine Palace. This force mainly focused on alchemy. They were very famous for their alchemy skills, and the elixirs that they refined were highly sought after. Most importantly, the reputation of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very good. Every month, the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution would open its doors. Martial artists who liked alchemy could enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and study there for 3 months. During these 3 months, the alchemy experts of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution would impart their experience and skills. All of this was free of charge. It was also because of this that the Cloud Sea Pill Institution was able to survive under the influence of the other overlords. Moreover, they were living a comfortable life, and their strength was getting stronger and stronger. Their goal was to go to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and seize one of their treasures, the Heavenly Demon Fruit. Cough, cough. It doesn't seem right for us to seize other people's treasures for no reason. On the way, Lu Ming coughed a few times. Lu Ming was quite principled. Unless it was an enemy, he wouldn't seize other people's treasures for no reason. Moreover, this force had a good reputation. I'm getting rid of evil for the people. Do you really think that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution is as good as the rumors say? Those are just tricks that the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution use to deceive the world. I've already investigated it. The things that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution does in the dark are infuriating and outrageous. Xian Yanqing said as a cold light flashed in his eyes. What do you mean? Lu Ming asked. Come with me. I'll bring you to have a look. Xian Yanqing said. The two of them flew for a few days. They had already reached the territory of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. The two of them landed in the mountain range and walked forward. There was a small town in front of them. Most of the people living there were ordinary people, but there were a few low-level martial artists. The two of them strolled around the town. How is it? Did you see anything? Xian Yanqing asked. Lu Ming swept his gaze across, his frown deepening. The people in this town are very strange. Most of them have low blood and qi, especially the children. Lu Ming said. That's right. Do you know why? Xian Yanqing asked. There was a flash of light in Lu Ming's eyes. During this period of time, he had made great progress in his inscription Dao. Naturally, his judgment was different. He thought of one possibility. Before Lu Ming could say anything, Xian Yanqing had already explained, that's because the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution often come here and secretly extract the innate blood and qi of the babies. When the babies are born, the qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution isn't heavy. The innate blood and qi are the most useful. They use the innate blood and qi to refine pills. This causes the babies whose innate blood and qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to grow up with insufficient qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. However, for the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, living to the age of 30 is already enough, because they have already married and had children. Their children will also end up in the same situation. Perhaps, in the eyes of the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, ordinary people are just some animals that they have raised. Perhaps, in the eyes of the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, these people are just some human-shaped elixirs. Livestock? Human-shaped elixirs? Lu Ming's heart trembled. A cold murderous intent flashed in his eyes. If that was the case, then the people of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution were simply a bunch of greedy demons. It's not just this small town. Within 1,000,000 miles of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, all the small towns and villages that are slightly more remote are in a similar situation. Most of these villagers are ordinary people. The strongest are only martial warrior level martialists who have never traveled too far in their lives. They still think that a person's lifespan is around 30 years old. Xian Yanqing smiled coldly. Lu Ming's face was gloomy. These people could obviously live to 80 or 90 years old. However, their innate blood and qi of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had been extracted when they were babies. Their lifespan was greatly reduced and they thought that they could only live to 30 years old. How sad was that? The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution is doing far more than this. They use the blood and qi of the babies to refine pills and then sell them at a high price to martial artists in the chaotic astral ocean who practice evil cultivation techniques. They make a huge profit. Xian Yanqing explained. It seemed that he had investigated the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution very thoroughly. Let's go. I'd like to meet the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. The killing intent in Lu Ming's eyes had disappeared. However, his tone was extremely cold. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was located on a majestic mountain range. The place was grand and majestic. Spiritual qi was dense, and it was as beautiful as a fairyland. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was actually a family called the Yun family. Because they often opened their doors and imparted alchemy techniques to others, it was called the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It was said that the head of the Yun family was a Sea of Soul Realm Almighty. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing naturally couldn't just kill their way in. They planned to sneak in and check out the situation first. Over the past few days, the Cloud Sea City in front of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had become lively. This was because the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution opened their doors every month to impart alchemy techniques. Martial artists from all over the Cloud Peak region who were interested in alchemy gathered there. There were even people from other regions. The two of them came at the right time. Tomorrow was the day when the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution opened their doors. The two of them strolled around the city. Along the way, they attracted the attention of passers-by. It was mainly because of Xian Yanqing's beauty. Such a peerless beauty was rare in the world. "Miss, are you going to enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to learn alchemy as well?" A handsome young man with a slender figure walked over and asked with a smile. His eyes were fixed on Xian Yanqing, revealing a trace of passion. Xian Yanqing glanced at him with a cold expression and didn't answer. "Miss, I'm Gu Huaxiu, the young master of the Gu family. This should be your first time in Cloud Sea City, right? If you don't mind, I'm willing to show you around the city." The young man continued and reported his family background. His eyes were fixed on Xian Yanqing. As for Lu Ming, he directly ignored him. "Get lost." Xian Yanqing frowned and spat out coldly. Gu Huaxiu's face instantly darkened. Xian Yanqing actually told him to get lost? No woman had ever dared to speak to him like that. Gu Huaxiu flicked his sleeve and strode away. Before he left, he glanced at Lu Ming with killing intent. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He was completely speechless. He hadn't even said a word and was directly implicated. However, he knew Xian Yanqing. When the young man came over to greet them, he knew that this would be the outcome. The two of them continued to stroll around for a while and found a restaurant to have a meal. After that, they found an inn to rest in. The next day, it was time for the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to open their doors. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing left Cloud Sea City and headed to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It was very simple to enter the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. All they had to do was fill in the basic information and they could enter. Chapter 627. Everyone, from now on, you will be studying alchemy in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution for 3 months. All of you should have some foundation in alchemy. At that time, there will be teachers with profound alchemy skills in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution who will explain to you. Of course, you can also interact with the teachers. A skinny middle-aged man appeared in front of the crowd and introduced them loudly. It's still early. Let me show you around the front yard of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. There are some finished pills there. You can learn from each other. The middle-aged man said. Then, he led the crowd to the back. The crowd followed closely behind. Lu Ming looked around and realized that there were a few hundred of them. There were men and women, old and young. They came from all over the place. The crowd followed the middle-aged man around and toured the front yard. The front yard was huge. It was made up of several huge mountains. There were palaces and pavilions everywhere. They could vaguely smell the fragrance of herbs. In some places, there were even herbal fields where various spiritual herbs were planted. These herbal fields were guarded by specialized people. These people were either skilled in the water essence or the wood essence. They were the most suitable for cultivating spiritual herbs. Lu Ming, there should be an assessment later. It will test your alchemy skills. Can you do it? Xian Yanqing asked in a low voice. I should be able to. Lu Ming said. In the path of inscription, there were different preferences. There were several major branches. For example, there were those who preferred crafting weapons, those who preferred alchemy, and those who preferred inscription formations. However, they all had one thing in common, which was that they needed to use spiritual fire and inscriptions. During this period, Lu Ming's inscriptions were no longer a problem. The number of level 1 to level 3 inscriptions that he had mastered was enough to make those old monsters who had studied inscriptions for hundreds or thousands of years blush with shame. Alchemy not only required inscriptions, but also the identification of spiritual herbs and the knowledge of the prescription. In the past 2 months, Lu Ming had learned from Dandan about a dozen of the most common alchemy methods. He had also tried to refine them when he had the time. His skills were not bad. As long as the test was not too difficult, Lu Ming believed that he could do it. Really? Xian Yanqing was skeptical. In her impression, Lu Ming was a pure martial artist. He didn't practice the art of inscription. Have you ignited your spiritual fire? Xian Yanqing asked. Yes, a few months ago. Lu Ming answered honestly. Only a few months? Xian Yanqing pursed his lips. However, the good thing was that even if he failed in alchemy later, he wouldn't be chased out. He could still stay and learn. It was just that the treatment would be different. The group passed by a small bridge and flowing water, passing by pavilions, terraces, and pavilions. Following the middle-aged man, they arrived at a large hall. As soon as everyone arrived at the main hall, they smelled the medicinal fragrance. In the main hall, there were shelves. On the shelves, there were small jade boxes with pills placed on them. These elixirs were refined by the disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. You can take a look and verify your own alchemy skills. The middle-aged man said. Everyone looked around casually in the main hall. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing also looked at the side. The elixirs here were from level 1 to level 4. Each of them was full in color, round, and had a medicinal fragrance that made people feel comfortable. On the surface of many elixirs, there were fine inscriptions inscribed on them. They looked very beautiful. Golden Crow Pill, Energy Nurturing Pill, Wood Returning Pill. Lu Ming saw at least dozens of different elixirs. These elixirs are full in color and have high purity. It's a pity that the inscriptions are still a little lacking, so the fusion of the spiritual herbs hasn't reached a perfect level. The medicinal effects are also a little lacking. Lu Ming picked up an energy nurturing pill and looked at it. He whispered as he looked. This is still lacking. Is it true? Xian Yinqing was speechless. Lu Ming had only been in contact with the path of inscription for a few months. Could he really tell the difference between the quality of the elixirs? Humph, what a boastful man. Most of these elixirs were refined by the elite disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Each of them is full in color and the inscriptions are very profound. Each of these elixirs is of high quality. Even if I were to refine them, they would only be slightly better. What do you know? A sarcastic voice was heard. Lu Ming looked in the direction of the voice and saw a young man in a blue robe sneering at him. The young man in a blue robe was Gu Huaxiu, who had tried to hit on Xian Yinqing the day before but was rejected. After he finished speaking, Gu Huaxiu turned to look at Xian Yinqing and said, "Miss, this friend of yours is really nothing much. He's all talk and no real ability. Miss, I advise you to keep your distance from him as soon as possible." Xian Yinqing glanced at Gu Huaxiu casually and said indifferently, "What does it have to do with you who I'm with?" "Humph, you really don't know what's good for you. A fresh flower stuck in cow dung." Gu Huaxiu snorted coldly and walked to the other side. Lu Ming was speechless. This old man was really crazy. Everyone watched for a while in the hall. About half an hour later, the middle-aged man said, "All right, it's about time. Follow me." Everyone followed the middle-aged man to a square. "Look, Miss Yun Haitang is here." At this moment, someone pointed at the sky and shouted. Lu Ming looked toward the sky. In the sky, 3 figures were flying toward them. In the middle was a young woman. This woman looked to be in her 20s and was extremely beautiful. She was wearing a tight-fitting red gauze dress that accentuated her impressive figure in a soul-stirring manner. She was a stunning beauty. Most men would be tempted when they saw her. Beside this woman stood 2 old men. These 2 old men emitted powerful auras. Greater Success King. Lu Ming's eyes moved. He could see that the 2 old men were both in the Greater Success King realm. However, among the 3 of them, the young woman was clearly the leader. The 3 of them landed on the square, causing a commotion in the crowd. Most of the men, regardless of age, stared at Yun Haitang with fiery gazes. "I didn't expect Miss Yun Haitang to personally receive us this time. Could it be that she's going to exchange alchemy with us this time? That's great." It's said that Miss Yun Haitang is not only the #1 beauty of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, but she's also the most skilled alchemist among the younger generation. Her alchemy attainments are extremely profound, surpassing many of the older generation. This time, this old man will have to ask for advice. "Hey, I think you're just pretending to ask for advice. You want to use this opportunity to get close to Miss Yun Haitang, right? You're already so old, but you still don't have any self-respect. So what if I'm old? I can still have my spring when I'm old." The scene was noisy. These stinky men. At the scene, some of the women looked at the men with disdain. What do you think? Isn't she very beautiful? On the side, Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming and asked. Yes, she's very beautiful. Lu Ming smiled. Humph. Xian Yinqing's mouth began to curl up. However, she's still far from being comparable to you. Chapter 628. Xian Yinqing's face reddened as a faint smile appeared on her face. However, if she's really in charge of leading us this time, we can start with her. Xian Yinqing continued. Oh? What do you mean? Lu Ming was curious. The two of them spoke through voice transmission, so no one else could hear them. I've heard that some of the important treasures of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution are hidden in an underground cave behind the mountain. However, the underground cave is filled with inscription arrays. Only the inscription tokens refined by the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution can enter. There are only 10 such tokens in the entire Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, and all of them are in the possession of the important figures of the institution. Most of the important figures are in seclusion and we can't find them. However, as far as I know, Yun Haitang has an inscription token. As long as we get the token, we can sneak into the treasury of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and take the Heavenly Demon Fruit. Of course, it's not bad to take some other treasures along the way. Xian Yinqing smiled and transmitted his voice to Lu Ming. Oh? Lu Ming nodded and thought about how to get the inscription token. Be quiet. Yun Haitang spoke. Her voice was so sweet that it could seep into one's heart. For men, it was definitely a great weapon. Sure enough, many people's eyes were burning with passion. This included Gu Huaxiu. The fire in his eyes seemed to be able to burn Yun Haitang. This time, you will have 3 months of learning and I will be in charge of you. Yun Haitang opened her mouth and continued, of course, I also know that some of you are very skilled in alchemy. You might even surpass me. Therefore, I don't dare to say that I will teach you. In the future, we can exchange alchemy knowledge and improve together. This is the most important thing. Yun Haitang smiled and spoke very politely. Miss Haitang, you're too humble. Everyone in the Yunfeng domain knows about your alchemy skills. I hope to have more exchanges with you in the future. Miss Haitang, I am the successor of the Lu family. I hope you can give me some pointers. Miss Haitang, I am. Some young men with extraordinary backgrounds introduced themselves one after another, hoping to attract Yun Haitang's attention. However, Yun Haitang only nodded with a smile and did not say much. After a while, Yun Haitang opened her mouth again and said, okay, according to the rules, there will be an alchemy assessment. There's no other meaning. I just want to see your alchemy level and what you're good at. It will be more effective for future exchanges. Does anyone have any objections? No, of course. Everyone shouted. Some of them had even begun to rub their fists in preparation to perform well and attract Yun Haitang's attention. Hee, these trash actually want to attract Miss Haitang's attention? Truly a toad lusting after a swan's meat. In my opinion, among this group of people, there is no one who can match Brother Gu in terms of alchemy. That's right. Later, Brother Gu will definitely amaze the world and attract Lady Haitang's attention. In the future, Brother Gu might even be able to win the heart of a beauty. We're really envious. Beside Gu Huaxiu, a few young men began to flatter him. The Gu clan was very powerful in the Yunfeng domain. Naturally, many people wanted to curry favor with Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu's face was full of arrogance and pride. In his opinion, these people were all half-baked. His Gu clan was a professional alchemist. In the Yunfeng domain, his reputation was only slightly lower than the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. He had absolute confidence in his alchemy skills. The assessment is very simple. You just have to refine a strengthening pill and hand it to me. Yun Haitang introduced. Following that, the disciples of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution brought out several alchemy cauldrons and placed them on the square. Each person was given a spiritual herb to refine a strengthening pill. The alchemy cauldrons and spiritual herbs were the same. Next, it was time to test their alchemy skills. Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing casually walked up to two alchemy cauldrons. However, they realized that Gu Huaxiu had also walked up to them. This guy was definitely doing it on purpose. He probably wanted to show off his skills in front of Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming. Alright, let's start now. You have half an hour. After everyone had chosen their alchemy cauldrons, Yun Haitang announced. As soon as Yun Haitang finished speaking, everyone began to concentrate and began to refine. In the square, wisps of spiritual fire appeared and the heat began to rise. I didn't expect to refine a strengthening pill. My luck is not bad. Lu Ming smiled. The energy cultivation elixir was a very common elixir. It was a level 2 elixir. Coincidentally, the energy cultivation elixir was one of the elixirs that Lu Ming had mastered. Lu Ming was not in a hurry to start refining. Instead, he looked around. He realized that everyone was focused on controlling the spiritual fire to refine the pill. This girl is actually a level 4 inscriber. I couldn't tell. Lu Ming noticed that the green flame in Xian Yanqing's hand disappeared in a flash. A green spiritual fire represented a level 4 inscriber. The cultivation of an inscriber was much more difficult and slower than martial arts cultivation. It was already very good that he could become a level 4 inscriber at his age. Most importantly, Xian Yanqing's progress in martial arts was even more terrifying. Lu Ming noticed that there was also a green flame in Gu Huaxiu's hand. He was actually a level 4 inscriber. No wonder he was so arrogant. Then I'll start as well. Lu Ming smiled. His vital essence swirled and the lid of the alchemy furnace opened. Lu Ming patted the alchemy furnace and a wisp of yellow mental fire flashed and disappeared. It surged into the alchemy furnace and began to heat it up. Just as Lu Ming started refining, Yun Haitang's expression suddenly changed and she looked in Lu Ming's direction. What a strong spiritual fire, what a pure spiritual fire. Although this person is only a level 3 inscription master, the kindling he uses is no small matter. Moreover, the number of spiritual lamps he has lit is also no small matter. For every level, he has at least 4 lamps, and he might even have 5. Yun Haitang's mind raced as she stared at Lu Ming with her beautiful eyes. However, she didn't think that Lu Ming could have lit more than 6 spiritual lamps for each level. That was because he was already a true inscriber. It was too difficult to become a true inscriber. If one wanted to become a true inscriber, it didn't mean that one could light up 6 spiritual lamps for each level. One had to light up more than 6 spiritual lamps for each level. Lu Ming didn't know that he had already attracted Yun Haitang's attention. He focused on refining the elixir. After a while, the cauldron was heated up. He swept his spiritual qi and started to put in various spiritual herbs. The order in which he put in the spiritual herbs was very particular. The time between them and the timing had to be grasped precisely. Lu Ming put in the spiritual herbs one by one. After all the spiritual herbs were put in, he closed the cauldron and continued to pour in spiritual fire to refine the elixir. A moment later, a strong medicinal fragrance wafted out. At this moment, he could start to condense the elixir. Chapter 629. Lu Ming's finger began to carve inscriptions in the air. Inscriptions flew into the cauldron one by one and disappeared. What exquisite inscriptions! Yun Haitang's eyes lit up once again. Lu Ming focused and inscriptions flew into the cauldron one by one. In a short while, there was no medicinal fragrance coming out from the cauldron. Success. Lu Ming smiled. He opened the cauldron and took out the pills, placing them on a jade plate. Lu Ming looked around and found that the others were also opening their cauldrons. Huh, this is the pill you refined? What kind of dog shit is this? No one would pick it up even if you threw it on the road. At this moment, a mocking laughter sounded. By the side, Gu Hua was holding a jade plate. On the jade plate were the elixirs that he had refined. He walked toward Lu Ming. He cast a contemptuous glance at the elixir pills on Lu Ming's jade plate and said sarcastically, "The color is uneven. Obviously, the timing of putting in the elixir pills is not right. Also, what is this? There is not a single inscription on the elixir pills and there is not the slightest medicinal fragrance. This is obviously a useless elixir." Huh, don't tell me you don't even know inscriptions. Gu Huaxiu laughed, revealing a look of disdain. His laughter attracted the attention of the surrounding people, who looked at Lu Ming's pills. Sure enough, there's not a single inscription and no medicinal fragrance. It's a waste pill indeed. This person doesn't know how to refine pills. What is he doing here? He's probably a playboy from some family, a toad lusting after a swan. He's probably trying to woo Miss Haitang. Tisk, I've seen many people like him. How could Miss Haitang like someone like him? The surrounding people looked at Lu Ming's elixir pills and whispered among themselves. Young Master Gu, this person is obviously a playboy who doesn't know how to refine pills. How can he compare to young Master Gu? That's right. Look at young Master Gu's pills. The pills are round and full, the color is even and transparent. The inscriptions are exquisite and the medicinal fragrance is rich. It's clearly a second-grade spiritual herb. No one in this group can compare to young Master Gu. Beside Gu Huaxiu, the youths flattered him again. Although it was flattery, what they said was indeed true. Gu Huaxiu's origin-strengthening pill was indeed the best choice. When the others saw Gu Huaxiu's pills, they shook their heads and sighed. They couldn't compare to Gu Huaxiu's pills at all. Lu Ming, ignore them. Xian Yanqing walked over and looked at Lu Ming's pills. Her view was similar to the others. But she knew that Lu Ming had only come into contact with the Tao of inscription for a few months, so it was normal for him to refine a useless pill. After all, Lu Ming's main focus was on cultivating martial arts. Lu Ming rubbed his nose, smiled, and didn't say much. "Alright, bring out your medicinal pills and sign your names." Yun Haitang ordered. Everyone took the pills they had refined and placed them into a jade bottle. Then, they signed their names on the jade bottle's label. "Alright, you'll follow Deacon Feng to your respective rooms today. We'll gather here tomorrow morning," Yun Haitang said. Then, everyone followed the middle-aged man and went to find their own places to stay. After the crowd left, Yun Haitang immediately took out a jade bottle. The name on the bottle was Lu Ming's. Yun Haitang poured out Lu Ming's pills and observed them carefully. "Haitang, this is clearly a useless pill. What's so special about it?" The two old men said. "A useless pill? Uncles, you've made a mistake this time." Yun Haitang wore a faint smile. Her eyes flickered with astonishment. "Oh?" The two old men were slightly confused. They carefully observed the pills that Lu Ming had refined. After taking a closer look, the two old men's expressions changed. They became somewhat serious, and slowly, from serious to amazed. Such a brilliant inscription technique, such a pure pill. The two old men exclaimed in unison. "Uncles, you've seen it. The color of this pill doesn't seem to be balanced on the surface. The timing of adding the spiritual herbs isn't particularly precise. However, the pill is very pure and there are almost no impurities. This means that the spiritual fire of the person who refined the pill is extraordinary. All the impurities have been burned and refined. Also, this person's inscription technique is extremely exquisite. It's completely hidden on the surface of the pill. It can't be seen from the outside, but the combination of the pill is extremely exquisite. It has completely locked the medicinal effect. Therefore, there isn't a trace of medicinal fragrance. After speaking, a green flame appeared between Yun Haitang's fingers. The green flame represented a level 5 inscription master. Yun Haitang was only in her 20s, but she had already become a level 5 inscription master. It was shocking. The green spiritual fire flowed across the surface of the pill. Inscriptions immediately appeared on the surface of the pill. The inscriptions intertwined with each other. It was incomparably harmonious and magnificent. The two old men's eyes widened. They were even more amazed. This Lu Ming is interesting. The corner of Yun Haitang's mouth curled into an indescribable smile. There seemed to be a trace of greed in that smile. As for the other pills, Yun Haitang didn't even look at them. She wasn't interested. The Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very big. Everyone had their own courtyard. The environment was pretty good. After walking into the room in the courtyard, Lu Ming sat down cross-legged. He circulated the underworld god observation and started to cultivate his spiritual fire. Lu Ming's cultivation had reached a bottleneck. The 3 ultimate dragon god had been cultivated to perfection. As for the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps, it was too difficult to cultivate to the 5th step. It wasn't something that could be achieved in a short period of time. The 5th step of the 9 dragons' heaven-stomping steps was equivalent to the 6th level of a lower demigod martial skill. It was extremely terrifying. Above the heaven level was the demigod martial skill. It was also divided into lower and upper grades. Above the demigod martial skill was the divine martial skill. Therefore, Lu Ming spent more time cultivating the path of inscription. In the blink of an eye, a day had passed. On the 2nd day, everyone gathered at the square. Lu Ming and Xie Nianqing arrived together. Soon, a few hundred people had gathered. In the sky, 2 figures stepped on the air and arrived. It was a man and a woman. The woman was naturally Yun Haitang. The man looked to be in his mid-20s. He was very handsome and had a faint arrogance on his face. He arrived side by side with Yun Haitang and landed in the sky above the square. That's the other peerless genius of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. His name is Yun Zongsheng. Whether it's alchemy or martial arts, he's extremely powerful. He's second only to Yun Haitang in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Moreover, his father is the patriarch of the Yun family, a Sea of Soul Realm Almighty. He's so handsome and has a good background. He's handsome and talented. If I can marry him, my life will be worth it. A young woman said as if she was infatuated. Everyone. Yun Haitang called out softly. The crowd quieted down. I've seen all the pills that you guys refined yesterday. Sure enough, some of you are really good at refining pills. Even Haitang admires you a lot. I wouldn't dare to teach you. This time, we're mainly here to exchange pointers and improve each other's skills. Chapter 630. As soon as these words were spoken, it immediately caused a commotion. Among this group of people, there was actually someone who had caught Yun Haitang's attention and was able to casually enter Yun Haitang's courtyard to discuss alchemy with her. What did that mean? It meant that Yun Haitang had placed this person on the same level as her. More importantly, he could enter Yun Haitang's courtyard whenever he wanted. As the saying went, the pavilion closest to the water enjoys the moonlight first. Perhaps he would develop feelings for Yun Haitang after interacting with her more. Most of the men, regardless of age, had a burning look of anticipation in their eyes. Those who knew their place sighed inwardly. They knew that it wouldn't be them. I think Miss Haitang is most likely talking about you, young Master Gu. That's right. Whose alchemy skills are comparable to young Master Gu's in this group? I'm so envious. The people beside Gu Huaxiu immediately began to flatter him. Sigh, it might not be me. Perhaps there's someone with better alchemy skills. You should know that there's always someone better. Gu Huaxiu said humbly. Although his words were humble, he couldn't hide the smug look on his face. Miss Haitang must be talking about me. Could it be that she's secretly interested in me? Otherwise, why would she ask me to go to her courtyard to discuss alchemy? That must be it. Gu Huaxiu thought happily in his heart. Congratulations, young Master Gu. You'll get a beauty soon. Someone even whispered to Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu was grinning from ear to ear. Miss Haitang, who is this person with great alchemy skills that you're talking about? Someone asked. Yu Haitang smiled and said, this person is young and elegant. He's a young talent, Miss Haitang, you're being too polite. I don't deserve such praise. As soon as Yun Haitang finished speaking, Gu Huaxiu stood up and pretended to be humble. Many people also looked at Gu Huaxiu enviously. In their opinion, the person Yun Haitang was talking about was undoubtedly Gu Huaxiu. However, Yun Haitang was stunned. She looked at Gu Huaxiu blankly and said, Brother, what are you doing? I'm not talking about you. The smile on Gu Huaxiu's face stiffened. The crowd also suddenly quieted down. Pfft. After a while, someone could no longer hold it in and laughed out loud. Gu Huaxiu's expression was too hilarious. Some people tried their best to hold back their laughter until their faces turned red, while others burst out laughing. Beside Gu Huaxiu, the few people who had flattered him earlier were also frozen in place. Gu Huaxiu's body began to tremble. His handsome face flushed red. Shameful, this was too shameful. It turned out that the person Yun Haitang was talking about was not him at all. To think that he was still wishful thinking. This was really embarrassing. Also, how did Yun Haitang address him? Brother? She didn't even know his name. Gu Huaxiu wished there was a crack in the ground and he could crawl into it. In the end, he could only sit down with a red face. The few people beside him didn't even dare to look at him. The outstanding talent I'm talking about is called Lu Ming. Yun Haitang smiled sweetly and continued. Lu Ming. As soon as he said that, everyone looked at one another. Who was Lu Ming? Why had they never heard of him before? Only one person opened his eyes wide in astonishment. Lu Ming, is she talking about you? Xie Nianqing opened his eyes wide and glanced at Lu Ming in disbelief. She had also taken a glimpse at the pill that Lu Ming had refined. How was that possible? If there's no one else called Lu Ming with the same demeanor, then this Lu Ming must be me. Lu Ming rubbed his nose and said. How shameless. Xie Nianqing rolled her eyes at Lu Ming. However, she was still very curious. Don't tell me that the elixir you refined is something special? Hee, maybe Miss Yun Haitang is interested in me. Lu Ming chuckled. Shameless. Xie Nianqing said disdainfully. Meanwhile, Yun Haitang's gaze landed on Lu Ming's figure as she said, Brother Lu, what do you think of my suggestion? Lu Ming looked around and finally confirmed that Yun Haitang was talking about him. He rose from his seat with a smile and said, Thank you, Miss Yun Haitang. I think it's great. Yun Haitang's face was filled with joy as she said, I'm very impressed by Brother Lu's pill refining skills. Please guide me in the future. Miss Yun Haitang is being too courteous. Lu Ming said smilingly. Impossible, how could it be him? Miss Yun Haitang, are you mistaken? A gloomy voice could be heard at that instant. Lu Ming glanced in the direction of the voice and saw Gu Huaxiu. Oh, how could I be mistaken? Yun Haitang asked. Miss Yun Haitang, the pill that this guy refined yesterday did not have the same color and aroma. It's obviously a useless pill. His pill refining skills are a mess. Miss Yun Haitang, don't be fooled. Gu Huaxiu said loudly. That's right, Miss Yun Haitang, I saw it too. This guy basically doesn't know how to refine pills. Yeah, I saw it too. Many people in the surroundings blurted out too. Oh? You don't trust my judgment? Yun Haitang asked with squinted eyes. Miss Yun Haitang, it's not that we don't trust your judgment, but I'm guessing that this guy must have used some method to change the pill. The pill that he gave you wasn't refined by him at all. Gu Huaxiu blurted out. He initially saw Xian Yanqing and Lu Ming together. He greeted Xian Yanqing, but Xian Yanqing ignored him, thus he was extremely displeased with Lu Ming. Just now, it was because of Lu Ming that he had embarrassed himself. Now that he had the chance to embarrass Lu Ming, he naturally had to seize the opportunity and not let it go. Oh. Yun Haitang nodded slightly. A jade bottle appeared in her hand, and she poured out a pill. She held it in her hand and asked, "Is this the pill you're talking about?" Gu Huaxiu was stunned and nodded. Yes, it's this pill. That's right, it's this one. The others nodded as well. That's good. I said that Brother Lu's alchemy skills are superb because of this pill. Yun Haitang smiled. How can it be? This is clearly a useless pill. Gu Huaxiu was dumbfounded. Useless pill? Watch carefully. The green mental energy fire on Yun Haitang's finger flowed. In the next moment, lines of inscriptions appeared on the surface of the pill, intertwining with each other. It was extremely beautiful. The inscriptions are hidden and the medicinal effect is locked. How is this possible? How is this possible? Gu Huaxiu exclaimed in disbelief. After all, he was a level 4 inscriber born in the world of alchemy. He still had a good eye and could naturally see the truth of this pill at a glance. The others also widened their eyes in shock. Concealing the inscriptions was not something that ordinary people could do. Only those who had an extremely deep and proficient understanding of inscriptions could do it. This represented a certain level, and only grandmasters in the alchemy world could do it. Chapter 631. Yun Haitang took the elixir pill refined by Lu Ming and explained, under the effect of the inscription, this elixir pill is perfectly integrated with all kinds of spirit herbs. Moreover, it is very pure and has a strong medicinal effect. It is more than 30% better than the second-grade energy nurturing elixir. Now, is there anything that everyone is unconvinced about? Yun Haitang scanned the crowd. No one said anything. How could this be? Damn it! Gu Huaxiu roared in his heart. He looked at Lu Ming with murderous intent in his eyes. Today, he had really lost a lot of face. He had embarrassed himself before, and now, he was even more embarrassed. He sat down with a gloomy face. He was extremely jealous of Lu Ming. Not only was Lu Ming accompanied by a rare beauty, but now, he even had the opportunity to come in contact with Yun Haitang. His eyes were about to burst into flames. You bastard! Xian Yanqing was also speechless. He realized that he could never see through Lu Ming. Brother Lu, take this crabapple flower. You can enter my courtyard at any time. Yun Haitang waved her hand, and a crabapple flower flew toward Lu Ming. It was a crabapple flower carved from beautiful jade, and it looked like a real one. Lu Ming reached out to take it and said with a smile, "Thank you, Miss Haitang." Then, he sat down with a smile. Pervert, you can't walk away when you see a beauty. As expected, your lust hasn't changed. Xian Yanqing snorted and said disdainfully. You're not jealous, are you? Lu Ming looked at Xian Yanqing with a smile. Xian Yanqing's face turned slightly red. He curled his lips and said, "Who's jealous? Don't be so smug. Who would be jealous of you? Humph, go find your Miss Haitang. But let me tell you, this crabapple flower is very prickly. Don't get yourself into trouble before you can take advantage of it. Don't worry." Lu Ming smiled and said, "I'll get her inscription token." Everyone. At this moment, Yun Songsheng, who had remained silent the entire time, finally spoke. "I also want to learn from Haitang. Pick a person with great alchemy skills who can come find me at any time to discuss alchemy." Yun Songsheng's words caused the spirits of many women to rise, especially the younger ones. Their eyes shone brightly as they stared at Yun Songsheng, hoping to attract his attention. Yun Songsheng's gaze finally landed on Xian Yanqing. A fiery light flashed through his eyes as he warmly smiled, "Miss Xian Yanqing, your alchemy skills are truly admirable. In the future, you can come to my courtyard at any time to discuss alchemy with me. How about it?" Everyone followed Yun Songsheng's gaze and looked at Xian Yanqing. So it's her. No wonder Yun Songsheng paid attention to her. This thought flashed through many people's minds. Xian Yanqing's peerless talent was already in everyone's eyes. Apart from Gu Huaxiu, there were no less than 10 other young men who had approached Xian Yanqing to talk to her, but they were all chased away by Xian Yanqing. Many women looked at Xian Yanqing with jealousy, but they also sighed in their hearts, knowing that they were no match for Xian Yanqing. Not interested. To everyone's surprise, Xian Yanqing's reply was 3 cold words, "Not interested." The smile on Yun Songsheng's face stiffened. He had never imagined that Xian Yanqing would reject him so straightforwardly. How could he get out of this situation? "Miss Xia, please reconsider." Yun Songsheng's expression turned cold. Not interested means not interested. Xian Yanqing rejected him without any hesitation. Yun Songsheng's face turned completely dark, extremely unsightly. He had heard from others that there was a peerless beauty in this group, which was why he had come with Yun Haitang. As soon as he arrived, he saw Xian Yanqing. Xian Yanqing's beauty had moved his heart. He had wanted to learn from Yun Haitang and let Xian Yanqing interact more with him. After some time, how could Xian Yanqing escape from his grasp? However, he had never thought that Xian Yanqing would reject him so blatantly. "Good, good, very good." Yun Songsheng said a few words, and a vicious look flashed in the depths of his eyes. Then, he turned around and left. Xian Yanqing curled his lips casually. He did not take it to heart at all. Yu Haitang glanced at Xian Yanqing. No one knew what she was thinking. Then, she said with a smile, "Well, today, I will explain some knowledge of alchemy. If there is anything wrong with what Haitang said, you can tell us and we will discuss it together." After that, Yun Haitang sat cross-legged on a futon and began to explain. Lu Ming also listened carefully. Although he had a good grasp of inscriptions, he was still unfamiliar with alchemy. Otherwise, the color of the elixir would not be uneven. To be honest, Yun Haitang did have a deep understanding of alchemy. Lu Ming was like a sponge, crazily absorbing the knowledge of alchemy. Yun Haitang had been talking for 3 hours before she ended the explanation. The crowd also dispersed. "Lu Ming, when are you going to do it?" Xian Yanqing asked on the way. "In 2 days. I will find an opportunity to take the inscription token," Lu Ming said. Xian Yanqing glared at Lu Ming and said worriedly, "Hey, I say, you can't resist the temptation of beauty." However, Lu Ming suddenly looked at her without blinking. He suddenly approached her and whispered, "Don't worry, I can resist other people's beauty, but I can't resist your beauty." "Pervert." Xian Yanqing blushed and kicked out. Lu Ming laughed and flew back, dodging the kick and moving forward. Sigh, this guy, why is his luck so good? He can meet beautiful women wherever he goes. I have traveled across the 9 heavens and 10 lands, but I have never met so many beautiful women. Dandan sighed and was jealous of Lu Ming. Soon, they approached the dormitory. A few figures blocked their way. Gu Huaxiu and a few young men. Lu Ming smiled. It seemed that Gu Huaxiu couldn't hold it in anymore. What can I do for you? Lu Ming smiled faintly. What can I do for you? Kid, don't you know the mistake you made? A young man next to Gu Huaxiu shouted. That's right. You embarrassed young Master Hua today. Do you know your crime? Another young man shouted. I embarrassed him? Huh, what a joke. Lu Ming laughed. Kid, what are you laughing at? What's so funny? Gu Huaxiu said coldly. Isn't it funny? Did I embarrass you? You asked for it, okay? Before Miss Haitang finished speaking, you stood up on your own. And later, you stood up and said that my pills were useless. Did I say anything from the beginning to the end? You asked for it, didn't you? Lu Ming said with a smile. How dare you? If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been embarrassed in front of everyone. If it weren't for you, I would have come first this time. Gu Huaxiu yelled. Lu Ming was speechless. He really didn't understand his logic. He didn't have the ability, but he blamed everything on others. How ridiculous was that? Chapter 632. Lu Ming shook his head. He was too lazy to waste his time talking to someone like him. Kid, kneel down and admit your mistake, cripple your cultivation, and get out of the Cloud Ocean Alchemy Court, and I'll spare your life. Gu Huaxiu snapped coldly. Idiot. Lu Ming let out a sigh. Kid, what did you say? Gu Huaxiu's expression instantly turned dark. I said, idiot, get out of my way. A good dog doesn't block the way. Lu Ming snapped coldly. Son of a bitch, how dare you talk to young Master Gu like that, I'll cripple you. Beside Gu Huaxiu, a young man dashed forward and stabbed at Lu Ming's vital acupuncture points with his finger like a sword. This young man possessed a cultivation of the 5th layer Martial Emperor realm. If he were to be hit, Lu Ming's cultivation would be crippled. Bang! However, before his sword intent could reach Lu Ming, he was sent flying with a kick from Lu Ming. He flew a few hundred meters and crashed into a hill, causing a cloud of dust to fill the air. Meanwhile, the crowd was startled, causing them to stop and spectate from afar. That Lu Ming doesn't seem to be weak. A 5th layer Martial Emperor realm cultivator in the lesser success stage was sent flying with a single attack. I've never heard of him before. Could he be a genius from another district? The crowd whispered among themselves. Gu Huaxiu's expression turned colder as he said, so you do have some capabilities, but that's nothing before me. Die. Gu Huaxiu's figure dashed forward and lashed out a palm at Lu Ming. As the palm passed, a loud explosion took place as the force of the palm surged in Lu Ming's direction. A peak 7th layer Martial Emperor realm cultivator in the greater success stage. This was Gu Huaxiu's strength. It was impressive to be able to achieve this at his age. Unfortunately, his opponent was Lu Ming. A spear appeared in his hand as he lashed out. Bang! The spear collided with Gu Huaxiu's palm, causing his figure to be knocked backward rapidly. Lu Ming and Wei Ran remained motionless. Of course, this was the result of Lu Ming doing his best to restrain his power. Otherwise, Gu Huaxiu would have been blasted apart by the spear. Lu Ming didn't want to reveal too much of his strength and attract the attention of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Otherwise, it would be more difficult to obtain the Heavenly Demon Fruit, and the other party would definitely increase their vigilance. Lu Ming suppressed his strength to be slightly stronger than Gu Huaxiu's. Damn it, kill! Gu Huaxiu roared and charged towards Lu Ming. His palms turned crimson gold as he sent out palm strikes towards Lu Ming. The violent palm strikes caused the space around them to tremble. Lu Ming's spear vibrated as it thrust forward, colliding with Gu Huaxiu's palm strike. With every thrust of the spear, Gu Huaxiu's palms crumbled. Lu Ming strode forward, closing in on Gu Huaxiu. Lose. In the end, Lu Ming roared and struck Gu Huaxiu with his spear, sending him flying. Puff! Gu Huaxiu struggled to get up and spat out a mouthful of blood. His face was pale as he looked at Lu Ming with resentment. Brat, just you wait. Gu Huaxiu left with his tail between his legs after saying that. This Lu Ming is so strong. Not only is his alchemy skill high, but his cultivation is also very strong. He's already a greater success stage sovereign at such a young age. He's considered a decent genius. Let's not provoke him in the future. The others by the side looked at Lu Ming, revealing a fearful expression. One after another, they left. I thought you would kill him in one move. Xian Yanqing said. It's easy to kill him, but I'm afraid of alerting the enemy. Lu Ming smiled as the two returned to the dormitory. Night fell. In a luxurious courtyard of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, two figures were discussing something. This was the Haitang courtyard. These two were Yun Haitang and Yun Songsheng. Hee, that Gu Huaxiu has made his move, saving us some trouble. I was planning to send someone to test Lu Ming's strength. Yun Haitang raised a cup of red wine and took a sip, before she giggled. A 7th-layer martial emperor realm sovereign at the greater success stage. Not bad, but he's not a threat to us. That bitch Xian Yanqing dares to reject me in front of the crowd. Damn it, that bitch dares to put on an act. I'll make her beg for mercy on my bed sooner or later. Yun Songsheng said in a cold tone as his eyes flickered with lust. As for the woman, don't touch her for now. At least, before I get my hands on her, you won't be able to do anything to her. Otherwise, what if you scare my prey away? This Lu Ming, I can feel that his spiritual flame is extraordinary. It must be delicious. Saying this, Yun Haitang stuck out her tongue and licked her plump lips. Her eyes flickered with lust. The action was extremely seductive, causing Yun Songsheng to swallow his saliva. His eyes burned passionately as a certain part of his body began to react. What is it? Do you want to have a go? I'll accompany you. Yun Haitang licked her lips and glanced at Yun Songsheng seductively. However, Yun Songsheng shuddered and took a step back. His eyes flickered with a hint of fear as he said with a smile, "Forget it, I still have something to do. I'll be leaving first." Saying this, Yun Songsheng left the Haitang courtyard as if he was fleeing for his life. Lu Ming. Yun Haitang mumbled as the lust in her eyes grew thicker. For 3 days in a row, there was a different person explaining alchemy to them. Lu Ming's understanding of alchemy advanced by leaps and bounds. His alchemy skills also improved a lot. During this period, Lu Ming also tried to refine elixirs a few times. He could clearly feel that every time he succeeded in refining elixirs, the law of inscription would send down traces of power of inscription to strengthen his mental flame. However, the elixirs that he refined were of a lower level than his inscription. Hence, the flames of inscription that were sent down were very few and far between. Only when refining high-quality pills or pills of a higher level than his inscription would the law of inscription produce more power of inscription. This was very helpful to the cultivation of the spiritual flame. However, it was not possible to reach that level in a short time. During these 3 days, Lu Ming did not look for Yun Haitang. Yun Haitang also did not send anyone to look for him. On the 3rd day, when night fell, a figure appeared in Lu Ming's dormitory. It was Xian Yanqing. Lu Ming, I'll take you to see something interesting. Xian Yanqing said. Something interesting? Lu Ming was stunned. Follow me. Be careful. Xian Yanqing said. Then, the two of them retracted their auras and left the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Soon, they saw a few figures in black robes flying out from the other side of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution and heading into the distance at an extremely fast speed. Let's follow them, Xian Yanqing whispered. The two of them followed behind the black-robed figures for hundreds of thousands of miles. At this time, the black-robed figures suddenly landed in a small village. We have to hurry. We must collect 99 strands of connate blood qi tonight, one of them said. Lu Ming felt that his voice was somewhat familiar. They're really here to collect connate blood qi. Chapter 633. A total of 3 black-robed men rushed into a wooden house silently. Inside the house, there was a young man and woman who were not even 20 years old and a baby. The black-robed men waved their hands and 2 streams of true yuan entered the young man and woman's body, causing them to fall into a coma. Then, the 3 black-robed men carved inscriptions into the baby's body. From the baby's heart, a blood-red qi was slowly extracted. Damn it! Lu Ming's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. Although he had heard about it before, Lu Ming couldn't control the killing intent in his heart after witnessing it with his own eyes. Extracting a baby's Xiantian qi to refine a pill, this method was extremely cruel and could kill people. Stomp. Stomp. Lu Ming didn't restrain his aura anymore and walked into the wooden house. Who is it? The 3 black-robed men immediately noticed someone and shouted. The people who will kill you. Lu Ming walked into the wooden house with cold eyes. Then, Xian Yanqing also walked in. It's the 2 of you. Huh, since you've seen this scene, I can only send you on your way. Originally, I wanted to let you live for a few more days. One of the black-robed men sneered. Yun Songsheng. Lu Ming's eyes moved. No wonder he felt that this person's voice was familiar. At this moment, he guessed that it was Yun Songsheng. Hee, it's me. The black-robed man took off the hood on his head, revealing a face filled with killing intent. It was Yun Songsheng. Yun Songsheng's fiery eyes fell on Xian Yanqing and sneered, Bitch, you actually dared to reject me in front of everyone. Do you know that it's your fortune that I'm interested in you? Today, I'll cripple your cultivation and let you enjoy it. Hee. Lu Ming, leave this guy to me. Xian Yanqing's voice was cold as if there was no emotion. Of course. Lu Ming's heart was already mourning for Yun Songsheng. Attack, only cripple their cultivation. I want them alive. Yun Songsheng waved his hand. Shua. Whoosh. At the same time, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing quickly retreated out of the wooden house and flew into the sky. You want to leave? Don't even think about it. Yun Songsheng and the other 2 chased madly and caught up to the sky. Leave? Who wants to leave? It's just that it's more convenient here. Lu Ming smiled faintly. Do it. I'll leave this brat to you. As for that bitch, I'll personally serve her. Yun Songsheng sneered and released a powerful aura. Peak of the 8th layer of the Martial King realm. This Yun Songsheng had reached the peak of the 8th layer Martial Emperor realm. No wonder he was so proud of himself. Boom. Boom. The auras of the other 2 black-robed men also burst out. They were also at the early stage of the 8th level of the Martial King realm. Both of them pounced on Lu Ming. Whoosh! Whoosh! The 2 black-robed men's bodies hadn't even reached them when their throats were pierced by 2 spear lights. They couldn't even let out a blood-curdling scream. Lu Ming's figure disappeared with a flicker. Their blood essence was devoured by Lu Ming, while their storage rings were now in Lu Ming's hand. Yun Songsheng's eyes opened wide as he stared at the scene in disbelief. Wasn't Lu Ming's cultivation only slightly stronger than Gu Huaxiu's? How did he become so powerful all of a sudden? 2 8th-layer Martial Emperor realm experts were killed before they could even react. Hiding his strength. Lu Ming must have been hiding his strength before this. Let's go. Without hesitation, Yun Songsheng turned around and fled. Being able to kill 2 8th-layer martial Emperor realm experts with ease, his strength was definitely stronger than his. Trying to escape. Xian Yinqing's gaze turned cold. She raised her jade-like hand and pressed it into the air. An invisible force field was generated, causing Yun Songsheng's figure to be suspended in the air. Such a fascinating martial skill. Lu Ming exclaimed. He had experienced this martial skill before, and it was indeed powerful. He had asked Xian Yinqing about it, and learned that this martial skill was called Heavenly Demon Force Field. However, Xian Yinqing had only just learned it. She had come to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution to obtain the Heavenly Demon Fruit in order to cultivate the Heavenly Demon Force Field. With the Heavenly Demon Fruit, her Heavenly Demon Force Field would be upgraded to a higher level. Yun Songsheng was terrified. He tried his best to prick with the needles, but with his cultivation, he could not break free from the restraint of the Heavenly Demon Force Field. Let me go, what are you doing? My father is the patriarch of the Yun clan, a Sea of Soul realm expert. If you dare to kill me, my father will not let you go. Yun Songsheng screamed in fear. Lu Ming, wait for me here. Xian Yinqing waved her hand and flew away with Yun Songsheng. Soon, Yun Songsheng's blood-curdling screams could be heard. Even Lu Ming could not bear to hear it. This seems like it's better not to offend women in the future. Lu Ming felt cold sweat on his back. After a while, the screams stopped abruptly. Xian Yinqing flew back alone. Let's go back. Xian Yinqing said. Dead? Lu Ming asked. Xian Yinqing nodded and flew forward. Lu Ming caught up and said, Yun Songsheng's death will probably cause a commotion in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. It's better for us to keep a low profile. Xian Yinqing nodded. With their current battle strength, it would be difficult for them to face a Sea of Soul Realm expert. Sea of Soul Realm was much stronger than Martial King Realm. An ordinary Peak King Realm expert in the first layer of the Spiritual Sea Realm could kill a bunch of them with a slap. The two returned to the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution without anyone noticing. In a mountain range hundreds of thousands of miles away from the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution, Gu Huaxiu sat cross-legged on a mountain peak. Damn it! If I don't kill that brat, I swear I'm not human. Gu Huaxiu growled, his voice filled with resentment. Hee, brat, you want revenge? Stop dreaming. If I'm not wrong, that Lu Ming didn't use his full strength when he fought with you. It could even be said that he only used a little bit of his strength. Suddenly, a shriveled and unpleasant voice sounded. The voice came out of nowhere. However, Gu Huaxiu was clearly the only one in the area. Gu Huaxiu didn't seem surprised at all. He only frowned and roared, "You're saying that Lu Ming didn't use his full strength? Damn it! Hee, yes. If I'm not wrong, that Lu Ming definitely has the battle strength of a Peak King Realm expert. And that little girl gives off a very dangerous feeling. She's probably not weaker than that brat. She might even be stronger." The shriveled voice sounded again. Damn it, why is it like this? Doesn't that mean I can't take revenge? Damn it! Gu Huaxiu roared. That's not necessarily true. You should have prepared the things I asked you to prepare, right? As long as you do as I ask, I guarantee that your cultivation will skyrocket in a short period of time. It'll be more than enough for you to defeat those two. The shriveled voice said. I've prepared everything, but can I really defeat that brat Lu Ming in a short period of time? You just said that he has the battle strength of a Peak King. Chapter 634. Kid, you're so short-sighted. What's the big deal about defeating that kid? From now on, your cultivation will continue to soar. It'll be easy for you to enter the list of top 1,000 talents. By then, Yun Haitang will throw herself at you. You can have as many beauties as you want. The shriveled voice outlined a beautiful future for Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu's eyes were burning with passion. All right, senior. I'll listen to you. Gu Huaxiu gritted his teeth and a jade bottle the size of a wine jar appeared in his hand. It was filled with a dark green liquid that emitted a nauseating stench. Gu Huaxiu frowned at the sight. Kid, this miraculous medicine is my life's work. Although it smells bad, it's only temporary. You'll have a bright future in the future. Drink it. The shriveled voice said. All right. Gu Huaxiu gritted his teeth, picked up the jade bottle, and gulped down the entire bottle of dark green liquid. Good, good. Ha ha ha. That voice laughed with incomparable excitement. A moment later, dark green runes rose from Gu Huaxiu's abdomen and covered his entire body. They rapidly gathered toward his head. What's going on? Why do I feel like I can't use my true essence? I can't even use my intent realm. I can't even move my body. What's going on? Gu Huaxiu cried out in panic. Ha ha ha, the heavens are on my side. I can finally be resurrected. The shriveled voice laughed maniacally. Then, a shadow flew out of Gu Huaxiu's body. It looked like an old man, and his eyes were filled with excitement. What are you trying to do? Gu Huaxiu finally felt that something was wrong. What am I trying to do? Of course, I'm going to use your body to come back to the world. All my efforts were not in vain. Ha! The old man laughed maniacally, then turned into a ray of light and rushed into Gu Huaxiu's forehead. What are you doing? Get out of here! Gu Huaxiu roared. His face was twisted as he struggled madly, as if he was fighting against something. However, half an hour later, Gu Huaxiu's voice softened. The light in his eyes dimmed as he closed them. But in the next moment, his eyes suddenly opened, revealing a look of ecstasy. Ha ha ha, I've finally taken over this body and returned to the world. Great, great, this is great. Moreover, I've made it in time for the Battle of Providence. This body just so happens to meet the requirements. This time, I'm going to seize a great opportunity. Gu Huaxiu laughed. To be precise, he was no longer Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu, I will use your identity for now. However, your cultivation is too weak and you need to raise it. Also, there seems to be something good in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. You must get your hands on it. Gu Huaxiu grinned, then sat down with his legs crossed and began cultivating. As he cultivated, the boundless spiritual qi in the sky and earth gathered frantically towards Gu Huaxiu's body. Gu Huaxiu's aura also rose rapidly. Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Indeed, from the second day onwards, Lu Ming and Xian Yanqing felt that the atmosphere in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution had changed. It had become somewhat solemn. Moreover, there was no one to teach them. Lu Ming and the rest suddenly had nothing to do. Yun Haitang's figure had also disappeared. She did not show up and did not look for Lu Ming either. Lu Ming knew that something must have happened to Yun Songsheng, which had alerted the higher-ups of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Many of the things that the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution did were shady. They were afraid that they would attract the attention of the major forces. He believed that they would not dare to go out and collect connate blood qi for the time being. Since there was nothing to do, Lu Ming decided to cultivate in his dormitory. In the Temple of Paragon, Lu Ming sat down with his legs crossed. There were some strange metals beside him. They were all refining materials. With a roll of his true essence, a piece of dark gold metal appeared in front of Lu Ming. Lu Ming stretched out his hand and a wisp of yellow flame flew out. It wrapped around the dark gold metal and began to burn fiercely. Lu Ming's spiritual flame used the earth core flowing flame as the fire seed. Its temperature was terrifyingly high. In a short while, the dark gold metal completely turned into a pool of liquid. It surged in the air and sizzled in the flames. Wisps of black flames could be seen floating upwards. This was burning the impurities in the metal. After a short while, Lu Ming added another piece of metal and continued to condense it with his spiritual flame. Just like that, Lu Ming added 6 pieces of metal consecutively. The 6 pieces of metal turned into liquid and fused together. Slowly, the liquid metal turned into a long sword. There were strange patterns on it, and the sword was extremely sharp. However, this was only a half-finished product. When the long sword was formed, Lu Ming's fingers quickly inscribed inscriptions in the air. Inscriptions flew into the sword and disappeared. The aura on the long sword also became stronger and stronger, giving off a feeling of showing off its sharpness. The speed at which Lu Ming's fingers inscribed inscriptions became faster and faster. It was so fast that only a bunch of afterimages were left. Half an hour later, Lu Ming let out a long breath and stopped inscribing. The spiritual flame was also retracted. The long sword fell into Lu Ming's hand. Swish! Swish! Lu Ming picked up the long sword and waved it a few times. A sharp sound of breaking through the air rang out. High-grade rank 3 spirit weapon. The corner of Lu Ming's mouth curled into a smile as he felt the power of inscription sprinkled down by the law of inscription. This was Lu Ming's first time refining, and he had already refined a high-grade rank 3 spirit weapon. Lu Ming was already quite satisfied. This was related to Lu Ming's previous 2 levels, which were the perfect state with 10 spirit lamps lit. As long as Lu Ming practiced for a period of time, it wouldn't be too difficult for him to refine rank 3 spirit weapons. He might even be able to refine rank 4 spirit weapons. In the following period of time, Lu Ming spent most of his time cultivating the underworld observation method, refining pills, and refining weapons, except for a little time every day to comprehend the essence of heaven and earth and the 9 dragons ascending heaven steps. Moreover, Lu Ming felt that he was more talented in refining weapons. Under Danden's guidance, Lu Ming refined a high-grade rank 3 spirit weapon in 3 days. 7 days later, Lu Ming refined a high-grade rank 3 spirit weapon. 12 days later, Lu Ming successfully refined a low-grade rank 4 spirit weapon. Refining a high-grade spirit weapon, or refining a higher-grade spirit weapon, the power of inscription from the law of inscription increased greatly. It was much faster than cultivating the underworld observation method. Lu Ming's spiritual flame increased rapidly. In just half a month, Lu Ming had successfully ignited the 8th spirit lamp and was about to ignite the 9th. Lu Ming's goal was to ignite the 10th spirit lamp. This was only possible because he had the underworld observation method and could refine a higher-grade spirit weapon. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't even think about it. In this half a month, the atmosphere in the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution was very abnormal. However, as time passed, the atmosphere slowly returned to normal. On the 16th day, an elder finally came out to give a lecture. Young Master Lu Ming, Miss Haitang invites you to Haitang Courtyard for a chat. Chapter 635. It was finally here. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. Xian Yanqing glanced at Lu Ming and said in a strange tone, "Your beauty is here. Make good use of it." Lu Ming bitterly smiled and winked at Xian Yanqing. Then, he followed the maid to Haitang Courtyard. Haitang Courtyard was located on another mountain peak with beautiful scenery. Although it was a courtyard, it was built magnificently and occupied an extremely large area. It could be said that this entire mountain peak was Haitang Courtyard's territory. There were even stone palaces built in the belly of the mountain. The maid led Lu Ming through many twists and turns before arriving at a stone palace. This stone palace was built in the belly of the mountain. Light couldn't directly shine in. The walls of the stone palace were inlaid with luminous stones, giving the stone palace a hazy feeling. Within the stone palace, there was a jade table and several jade stools. On the jade table, there were already some spirit fruits, wine, and dishes. After the maid led Lu Ming here, she retreated. Now, only Lu Ming was left in the stone palace. Lu Ming looked around with interest. Then, he picked up his wine cup and poured himself a cup of wine. He drank it in one gulp. Good wine. Lu Ming couldn't help but praise. This wine was mellow and mellow. After entering his stomach, he felt his entire body warm up. The aftertaste was endless. Since it's good wine, Brother Lu should drink a few more cups today. A sweet voice rang out as Yun Haitang walked in. Today, Yun Haitang was wearing a black muslin dress. The dress was split on both sides, revealing two snow-white and plump thighs as she walked. The key point was that the dress was transparent. Some of Yun Haitang's beauty was faintly discernible. Under the hazy light of the luminous stones, it was filled with endless temptation. Yun Haitang leisurely walked in front of Lu Ming. A rich fragrance rushed into Lu Ming's nose. Lu Ming felt his heartbeat quicken. To be honest, Yun Haitang's figure was very impressive. She was only a little worse than Mulan's. In such an environment and in such a dress, any man would be tempted. Lu Ming was naturally a normal man. Yun Haitang sat on the stone bench next to Lu Ming. Her snow-white slender thighs were exposed from the slit in her gauze skirt all the way to her roots. Brother Lu, I gave you the right to come to the crabapple courtyard to look for me at any time, but you didn't come even after so long. You even asked little sister to send someone to invite you over. That's too much. You must be punished with 3 cups of wine. Yun Haitang poured a glass of wine for Lu Ming and smiled sweetly. Her voice was so sweet that it could penetrate one's heart. Fine, he deserves to be punished. Lu Ming smiled, picked up the wine cup, and drank it in one gulp. Then Yun Haitang poured another cup of wine for Lu Ming. Just like that, Lu Ming drank 3 cups in a row. Brother Lu's path of inscription is truly admirable. I feel that although Brother Lu is only a 3rd-level inscription master, your mental strength shouldn't be inferior to some 4th-level inscription masters. Could it be that Brother Lu has lit 5 spirit lamps for each level? Yun Haitang blinked her large eyes, staring at Lu Ming without blinking. Lu Ming faintly smiled. Not bad. I was lucky to have lit 5 spirit lamps for each of the first 2 levels. Lu Ming's words caused Yun Haitang's eyes to brighten. Greed flashed in the depths of her eyes. Brother Lu's talent is truly admirable. Come, let little sister offer you a cup of wine. Yun Haitang picked up the wine cup and drank it in one gulp. Following her movements, her proud bosom rose and fell. It was a soul-stirring sight. After drinking a cup of wine, Yun Haitang's face immediately flushed red, making her even more alluring. At this moment, a maidservant hurried in. Yun Haitang's face immediately darkened. Can't you see that I'm drinking with young Master Lu? What are you doing here? Miss. The maidservant's face turned pale, revealing a trace of fear. However, she still walked over, leaned over, and whispered a few words in Yun Haitang's ear. Yun Haitang's face changed slightly. You can leave first. The maidservant immediately excused herself. Brother Lu, I have a small matter to deal with. Wait for me here. Yun Haitang said softly. Alright, it's fine. Miss Haitang, please go ahead. Lu Ming smiled. Yun Haitang got up and walked away gracefully. Lu Ming picked up the wine cup and drank another mouthful. Then, he stood up and continued to inscribe in the air with both hands. Inscriptions appeared and entered his body. This was the inscription formation that he had inscribed in the past to restrain one's aura. Although this formation wasn't very advanced, it had a unique effect in retracting one's aura. According to Dandan, this was its own creation. With Lu Ming's current cultivation, even a Sea of Soul Realm expert wouldn't be able to sense his aura. Inscriptions appeared on Lu Ming's body. Then, in a flash, they all disappeared. Lu Ming's aura also disappeared without a trace. The effect was many times better than him retracting his aura. Then, Lu Ming's figure moved and left the stone hall. After passing through several corridors and secret rooms, he saw another stone hall. A voice came from the stone hall. Lu Ming quietly rushed into the stone hall and hid in a corner. This stone hall was bigger than the one Lu Ming was in. A young man was sitting at the table with Yun Haitang. "Haitang, I haven't seen you in a while. I really missed you. Look, I came to see you as soon as I finished my business." The young man looked at Yun Haitang with fire in his eyes. "You really missed me? Don't lie to me." Yun Haitang smiled and poured a cup of wine for the young man. "Of course it's true. Sai, if it weren't for the fact that there's been a problem with the cultivation of my spiritual flame recently, not only is it not improving, it's even regressing, I really don't want to leave. I want to stay here and accompany you," the young man said. "Your elders didn't find out the reason for your spirit fire's regression?" Yun Haitang's eyes flashed and she asked softly. "No, it's really strange," the young man muttered. Then, his burning gaze fell on Yun Haitang and he said, "It doesn't matter. As long as Haitang is here, even if I can't cultivate, it doesn't matter." As he spoke, the young man's hand hugged Yun Haitang's slender waist and his breathing became heavy. Yun Haitang moaned and fell into the young man's arms. Then, the two of them were entangled together. Their clothes fluttered and the two naked bodies were entangled together. Their heavy breathing echoed in the stone hall. Lu Ming smiled bitterly. He didn't expect to see such a scene when he came to check on the situation. To be honest, it was Lu Ming's first time seeing such entanglement. Lu Ming rubbed his nose and watched with interest. The young man's breathing became heavier and heavier. After a while, the young man let out a beast-like growl. At this moment, Lu Ming was shocked by the scene that took place. 3 green spirit lamps appeared above the young man's head. Above them was a green spirit fire. This meant that the young man was a 4th-level inscription master. Similarly, a spirit lamp appeared above Yun Haitang's head. Chapter 636. At this moment, the young man was immersed in the boundless pleasure and did not notice his abnormality at all. Yun Haitang's eyes flashed with frenzied greed. That poisonous snake was constantly absorbing the young man's spiritual fire. The flames of the young man's 3 spiritual lamps dimmed rapidly, especially the flame of the 3rd lamp. It was on the verge of collapse and would be extinguished at any time. It was no wonder that the young man said that his spiritual fire was weakening and that his cultivation of the spiritual fire was deteriorating instead of improving. It would be strange if it did not deteriorate after playing this game with Yun Haitang every day. Moreover, he did not notice it at all. Yun Haitang was using this method to cultivate her spiritual fire. Lu Ming felt a chill run down his spine. This process only took about 10 breaths of time. The spiritual fire above their heads dimmed and disappeared. The young man slumped to the ground like a pile of mud. "Rest here for a while. I still have something to deal with," Yun Haitang said to the young man. The young man nodded. At this moment, Lu Ming quietly left the stone hall and returned to the previous stone hall. He poured a cup of wine and slowly sipped it. Not long after, footsteps sounded and Yun Haitang returned. "Brother Lu, sorry to keep you waiting," Yun Haitang said in a sweet voice and walked over gracefully. Yun Haitong's thin clothes covered her body, and there was even a hint of redness on her face. She looked even more charming. However, Lu Ming could not help but feel a chill run down his spine when he thought of the scene just now. He was not in the mood to admire it at all. He only said perfunctorily, "I didn't wait long." "You're quite fast." He indeed felt that the old man was quite fast. Yun Haitang smiled faintly and sat down beside Lu Ming. She poured a cup of wine for Lu Ming and then poured a cup for herself. She said, "Brother Lu, I'll punish myself with a cup." With that, she picked up the cup and drank it in one gulp. After putting down the cup, Yun Haitang blinked her big eyes and stared at Lu Ming. After a while, she said, "Brother Lu, I invited you here today to tell you something from the bottom of my heart." "Oh? What is it?" Lu Ming asked with a smile. Yun Haitang's face flushed red. Her body slowly approached Lu Ming. She placed a small hand on Lu Ming's shoulder. Her face was close to Lu Ming. Her breath smelled like orchids, and her hot breath blew on Lu Ming's face. "Actually, the first time I saw Brother Lu, I felt that Brother Lu was the man I had been waiting for my whole life. Recently, I've been missing Brother Lu very much." As she spoke, Yun Haitang's plump body was about to sit on Lu Ming's lap. Her fragrance assailed his nostrils. With such a scene and Yun Haitang being such a rare beauty, he believed that no man would be able to resist such temptation. If Lu Ming hadn't seen that scene just now, he might have been tempted as well. However, at this moment, he did not feel anything at all. He said indifferently, "The way I see it, you're not missing me, but my spiritual fire." His calm and indifferent voice made Yun Haitang's movements stiffen. Her body, which almost sat on Lu Ming's lap, also froze in the air. She revealed an ugly smile on her face. She looked at Lu Ming and said coquettishly, "Brother Lu, what are you talking about? What do you mean by missing your spiritual fire? I don't understand. I have a question. I'd like to correct you. I'm younger than you, but you keep calling me little sister. It's embarrassing." Lu Ming said very seriously. "Hee, so it's little brother. I thought you were older than me." Yun Haitang's face stiffened, but she smiled again. "There's one more thing. After you left, I was bored, so I walked around and happened to see the exciting scene between you and that young master. Hee, I wonder what will happen if this spreads?" Lu Ming laughed. Yun Haitang's face changed completely. It became extremely gloomy, and her eyes revealed a cold murderous intent. "Little brother, it's not good to wander around in other people's territory. You'll pay with your life." As soon as he finished his words, Yun Haitang's finger pierced toward his throat like a sharp sword. Her hand was placed on Lu Ming's shoulder. Since the distance between them was too close, Yun Haitang was confident that she could kill Lu Ming with this move. But in the next moment, her 100% confidence was reduced to 0. This was because Lu Ming's hand had grabbed her wrist. She had no idea how Lu Ming had grabbed her wrist. Even with her peak 8th layer martial emperor realm cultivation, she was unaware of it. Die. In an instant, a short sword appeared in her other hand and slashed toward Lu Ming's throat. However, the next moment, her hand was grabbed by Lu Ming again. Lu Ming grabbed both of her wrists. A terrifying true energy surged into Yun Haitang's body, causing her body to go limp and her true qi to dissipate. She had no strength to resist. Her heart sank. "Who are you? What do you want?" Yun Haitang yelled. Lu Ming's cultivation was too terrifying. It was far above hers. "Nothing? I just want to take your inscription badge. I don't mind if I can get rid of evil for the people." Lu Ming smiled faintly. You killed Yun Zongsheng, didn't you?" Yun Haitang asked. "You could say that." Lu Ming nodded. "The ancestor of the Yun clan won't let you go if you do that." Yun Haitang yelled. Is that so? Lu Ming's eyes turned cold as a murderous intent spread out. Miss. At this time, a few maidservants heard the noise and rushed in. Lu Ming flicked his finger and spear radiance flew out, penetrating the maidservants' dantians and destroying their cultivation. Their ability to speak was also sealed, so they couldn't speak for the time being. Feeling the cold murderous intent from Lu Ming, Yun Haitang was scared. She smiled with a pale face and begged, Lu Ming, brother Lu, I beg you, let me go. I can give you anything you want. Also, I will serve you well and make you comfortable. I guarantee that you will be satisfied. The meaning behind his words was self-evident. Lu Ming smiled faintly and said, I don't need it. Then, he pointed at Yun Haitang's dantian. Yun Haitang's cyclone collapsed and she collapsed on the ground like a pile of mud. Her eyes were full of despair. Then, Lu Ming pointed at Yun Haitang's glabella a few times. 5 spirit lamps appeared above Yun Haitang's head. The spirit lamps flickered a few times and then collapsed one by one. Yun Haitang's cultivation and inscription Dao had been destroyed. Lu Ming rolled up Yun Haitang's storage ring and took it in his hand. Lu Ming, kill me if you can. Otherwise, I won't let you go. Yun Haitang shouted with hatred. You will never be a threat to me. Lu Ming cast a faint glance at Yun Haitang. His tone was full of confidence. How could he take a mere Yun Haitang seriously? Moreover, she was someone who had crippled her cultivation and the Tao of inscription. Chapter 637. What's wrong? You're back so soon. Since a beauty invited you, why don't you take the opportunity to get closer to her? Xian Yinqing said sarcastically when he saw Lu Ming. Why would I get close to other women? If I want to get close to someone, it should be you. Lu Ming chuckled. Xian Yinqing blushed and said, stop it. Who wants to get close to you? Tell me, did you lust after her and get chased out? Lu Ming was speechless. Was his character that bad? Seeing that Lu Ming did not speak, Xian Yinqing smiled. Forget it. Let's not talk about it anymore. Let's get down to business. Lu Ming took out Yun Haitang's storage ring and immersed his mind into it. After a while, a token appeared. This is an inscription token? You're doing it so soon? Xian Yinqing asked. Of course. If I don't do it now, I'll have to sacrifice my body. Lu Ming muttered and said, now, let's do it immediately. Otherwise, we won't have a chance when others find out that something happened to Yun Haitang. All right. Xian Yinqing was not a hesitant person and immediately nodded. Wait a minute. Lu Ming shouted. Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming in confusion. I'll inscribe an inscription array for you to restrain your aura. Lu Ming's hands were constantly inscribing. Inscriptions flew into Xian Yinqing's body. In a short while, the inscription array to conceal one's aura was completed. Lu Ming, I didn't expect your inscription technique to be so brilliant. Xian Yinqing looked at Lu Ming curiously. It's just a so-so. Let's go. His figure flashed and he went into the depths of the Cloud Sea Elixir Institution. Xian Yinqing followed. At the same time, in a secret room of the Cloud Sea Pill Institution, a low roar like that of a wild beast could be heard. A white-haired elder had his heart pierced by Gu Huaxiu's claw. You? Who are you? Gu Huaxiu wasn't that strong? Disbelief flashed in the old man's eyes. He was a core elder of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution, a peak king. Even if Gu Huaxiu had launched a sneak attack, he wouldn't have been able to pierce through his heart. The cultivation that Gu Huaxiu had just displayed was utterly terrifying. Heh, death is at hand, why do you care so much? I just want your inscription token. True essence erupted, and the old man's aura vanished. Gu Huaxiu chuckled coldly. He licked his lips and took off the old man's storage ring. A moment later, a badge appeared in his hand, which was identical to the badge Lu Ming had obtained from Yun Haitang and the others. Gu Huaxiu's figure flickered, and he headed toward the treasury of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's cultivation was extremely profound. Their movement techniques were as fast as lightning, and with the inscription array concealing their auras, no one could discover them. Soon, the two of them arrived at the depths of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution. There was a huge mountain here. Halfway up the mountain, there was a stone door. The stone door was tightly shut, and there were inscription arrays all around it. Without the inscription token, even if one tried to force their way in, it would alert the upper echelons of the Cloud Sea Alchemy Institution, including the Sea of Soul Realm expert. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing rushed to the mountainside, took out the inscription token, and poured their true essence into it. Buzz! The inscription token glowed and inscriptions appeared. Inscriptions also appeared on the stone door. These inscriptions formed a light shield in front of the door. At that moment, the light barrier parted to form a door. As for the stone door, it opened by itself. Let's go! Their figures flashed as they rushed in. The light barrier closed automatically, and so did the stone door. Behind the stone door, there was a wide passage. It was obviously man-made, and the walls were bumpy. The two of them followed the passage and moved forward quickly. The passage was slanted downwards, and it went underground. The two of them carefully moved forward for a few minutes. Suddenly, Lu Ming felt his hair stand on end, and a sense of danger erupted from the bottom of his heart. Be careful! Lu Ming suddenly pulled Xian Yinqing and retreated quickly. Chi! Two sharp forces shot into the place where the two of them had been, leaving two bottomless, thumb-sized holes in the ground. Die! A figure pounced out quickly, and a dark green claw light grabbed at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's vital points. It was unbelievably fast. Buzz! A long spear condensed in Lu Ming's hand. The spear light pierced through the void and pierced forward. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Xian Yinqing pressed his hand forward, and a powerful force field burst out, encapsulating his opponent. Bang! Lu Ming's spear light collided with his opponent's. Lu Ming's figure swayed slightly, while his opponent retreated rapidly. How powerful! Lu Ming's eyes glistened. Despite his and Xian Yinqing's teamwork, their opponent was only knocked back, and was not injured. This was a clear indication of his strength. Of course, it was also because they had not used their full strength in a hurry. Gu Huaxiu. At this moment, Lu Ming saw the person before him and was astounded, his eyes filled with disbelief. Xian Yinqing beside him had the same reaction. The person who had ambushed them was none other than Gu Huaxiu. Gu Huaxiu was only a 7th-layer martial emperor half a month ago. In just half a month's time, his cultivation had improved to such a terrifying level. The combat strength of the two of you is beyond my expectations. Gu Huaxiu let out a hollow laugh and licked his lips, staring coldly at Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing. Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing frowned. They did not expect to stumble into Gu Huaxiu here. You're here to rob the treasure of the Cloud Ocean Pill Court too, right? Lu Ming said. Not bad, I didn't expect you two to be here too. Very well, I'll use this chance to get rid of you. Gu Huaxiu's eyes flickered as his figure transformed into more than 10 illusionary figures, charging in Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's direction. Every illusory figure looked real, and every illusory figure exuded a powerful aura. Sky Poison Claw. Gu Huaxiu groaned as he lashed out with a claw glow. The illusionary figures lashed out with their claws, covering Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's vitals. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Heavenly Demon Cleave. Xian Yinqing roared as the heavenly demon force field exploded, containing a terrifying cutting power. Swoosh! Swoosh! Lu Ming's spear transformed into more than 10 spear radiances, piercing through the illusionary figures. Bam! Bam! The three of them had restrained their genuine essence during the battle. Otherwise, with their combat strength, they would have pierced through the mountain. I didn't expect the two of you to be so powerful. I'm afraid even the lower-ranked geniuses on the list of top 1,000 talents are no match for either of you. Chapter 638. However, Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing were equally shocked. Gu Huaxiu had reached such a terrifying level in just half a month. His cultivation had already reached the level of a peak king. Furthermore, the martial skills he used were extremely strange, and his battle prowess was extremely strong. Lu Ming wasn't confident that he could win in a one-on-one battle. This guy's condition is too strange. Dandan stared at Gu Huaxiu with her dark eyes, her eyeballs rolling in their sockets. Dandan, what did you see? Lu Ming asked. Dandan had said that it had lived for a long time, and Lu Ming felt that it might be true. Perhaps Dandan could really see something. It's a bit like possession, but it's not easy. It requires a series of coincidences, or it'll be very difficult to succeed. Dandan muttered. Possession? Lu Ming and Xian Yinqing's expressions changed as disbelief appeared in their eyes. They had heard of the legend of possession. It was said that after a cultivator reached the spiritual god realm and formed a spiritual god, the spiritual god wouldn't crumble immediately even if the physical body was destroyed. It could even be reborn through possession. However, seizing someone's body wasn't as easy as one would imagine. Once a spiritual god left the body, it would be extremely weak and wouldn't be able to exist for long. Most importantly, every person's will was extremely strong and even involved the law of life. Basically, it was impossible to be possessed. If a spiritual god wanted to possess someone, it would usually end up in ashes. However, there were examples of successful possession in history, but it was too rare. Could it be that Gu Huaxiu had been possessed by a powerful existence? At this moment, Gu Huaxiu's expression changed drastically. Humph, I'll let the two of you go for now. I'll take your lives in the future. Gu Huaxiu snorted coldly and quickly retreated into the depths of the tunnel. After him. The two chased after him. The three of them continued forward, passing through the East Bay and West Bay. After a while, a huge underground cave appeared in front of them. On the ceiling of the underground cavern, there were blood-red gems embedded in the stone walls, scattering blood-red light. In the middle of the underground cavern, there was actually a medicinal field with more than a dozen types of spirit herbs planted. Blood infant fruit, dragon poison fruit, my intuition was right. As soon as Gu Huaxiu arrived, he was overjoyed and rushed toward the fruit trees. Heavenly demon fruit. Xian Yinqing saw a fruit tree that was as tall as a man. It was pitch black, and there was only one fruit on it. It was the size of a fist, and its surface was covered with strange patterns. This was the heavenly demon fruit that Xian Yinqing needed. Xian Yinqing pounced on the heavenly demon fruit. Wang! Wang! At this moment, the air began to vibrate violently. The vibrations were densely packed, as though countless bees were flying around. However, the vibrations were thousands of times stronger than bees. Whoosh! 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 Immediately, beetles flew out from the ground under the fruit trees. They shot toward Gu Huaxiu and Xian Yinqing like bullets. Their speed was shocking. The vibrations were caused by the beetles' wings flapping in the air. Be careful! Lu Ming exclaimed softly and dashed over quickly. Heavenly demon force field. Xian Yinqing pressed his palm down, and the powerful heavenly demon force field enveloped the beetles. However, the beetles' speed was only slightly affected, and they continued to rush towards Xianyanqing. Heavenly Demon Cleave. An incomparably sharp cutting power erupted, and a cutting power like wind blades slashed towards the beetles. Clang! Clang! The powerful cutting force cut through the beetles, but the sound of metal clashing could be heard, and sparks flew everywhere. Only a few of the beetles were cut in half, while the rest were sent flying. They slowed down for a moment before rushing over again. On the other side, a short sword appeared in Gu Huaxiu's hand, and he slashed repeatedly. However, the result was the same. Only a few beetles were killed, while the rest were sent flying. Sacred beetles, damn it, why are there sacred beetles here? Gu Huaxiu roared. Wang, the beetles flew up again, and there were at least 1,000 of them. Lu Ming rushed forward, and a huge spear light condensed in his hand. He swept it out, and dozens of the sacred beetles were sent flying like bullets, crashing into the surrounding walls and blasting large holes in them. However, even more sacred beetles pounced on Lu Ming. This kind of sacred beetle had a long spike on its mouth. It was abnormally sharp, and no one wanted to be pierced by this kind of spike. Shao Qing, take the heavenly demon fruit and retreat. Lu Ming shouted. Juniors, today, none of you will be able to leave. All of you will stay here. At this moment, a bone-chilling voice sounded. Boom! In the air above the cave, a mighty and terrifying aura pressed down. This aura gave people the feeling of facing a vast ocean. Not good, it's a Sea of Soul Realm expert. Lu Ming's face changed. It seemed that the Cloud Ocean Alchemy Institution had been waiting for them here. 9 dragons stomping the sky. Lu Ming didn't hesitate, and directly used the 9 dragons stomping the sky. His body turned into a ray of light, and in a flash, he dodged the large group of sacred beetles and rushed toward the heavenly demon fruit. Pung! Pung! Then, with a sweep of his spear, a group of sacred beetles in front of him were sent flying. His Zhen Yuan swept forward and wrapped around the heavenly demon fruit, and Lu Ming put it into his storage ring. Heavenly demon fruit, let's go! Lu Ming shouted, and his body flew toward the exit. At the same time, Xianyanqing also retreated. Juniors, stay here. A furious roar rang out, and 2 powerful forces pressed down on the 2 of them at an unimaginable speed. They were 2 rings of fire, and they emitted a shocking pressure. So hot. That's a second-grade fire concept. Lu Ming's heart stirred, and 3 kinds of concepts burst out. A spear light burst out, striking the ring of fire. There was a deafening roar and Lu Ming felt a boundless pressure surging toward him. His body shook slightly and he could not help but retreat continuously. On the other side, Xianyanqing was also in a similar situation, and he retreated a few steps. In the sky, a burly middle-aged man wearing a red robe stood in the void. His cold gaze swept over the 3 of them. My son, Yun Zongsheng, was killed by you? Today, I'll bury you with him. A cold voice was heard. As soon as he finished his words, the burly man in red robes pressed his hands down. A total of 9 flame rings were launched at Lu Ming, Xianyanqing, and Gu Huaxiu respectively. At the same time, the sacred beetles trembled violently, and flew toward the 3. Heavenly Demon Force Field. Destruction cut. Xianyanqing shouted, and pressed out with both hands. A powerful force field covered a radius of 10 meters, and an invisible cutting force destroyed everything. This time, many sacred beetles were directly cut in half, and only 3 rings of fire were left, rampaging in the force field. This is the destruction concept. Lu Ming's eyes lit up. You're tuning into the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.